gross number is 3.6 million. Yesterday, the increase was 2,268 globally.
Globally?
Yes.
2,000 new cases or new deaths?
Cases, new cases. So for me, it's an encouragement.
Only 2,000 new cases?
Yes, exactly. So for me, it's an encouragement that we could be getting somewhere positive with this because, as you
2,000 or 200,000? I'm still going back there. Huh?
2,000. The number of deaths increased by 155 globally.
Wow.
So, yes. So I think we could be getting somewhere with all the measures that have been instituted in place by as many countries as possible. So there's some hope. There's some hope. Much as when you narrow it down to the country, it looks like it's a big number. But when you compare it globally,
there's something happening.
There's something happening.
So what, 3.6 million? You're still at 3.6 million?
I think we have an increase. No. I think we have an increase because look at the reports that are coming out of the United States. Just an example. I think what they're looking at in terms of new deaths or new cases out of countries where they hadn't seen before, because the United States is reporting yesterday new cases at 27,348, with deaths in the US yesterday at 1,153.
Just and this daily deaths.
Yeah. So, I mean, updates on the 4th of May, 24,713 new cases. Deaths, 1,324 in the US alone. So
that's for which date?
4th of May. This is just yesterday, right?
Goes in line with...
Just go to today.
So
today is now between midnight and now.
Yeah, so today between midnight and now is when we're looking at the 2,000 cases.
Okay.
By the time the 24 hours elapses, we're likely to see. So we're looking at between yesterday morning when we talked about this and
today
now.
GMT or today Kenya, East Africa?
GMT.
Okay. It's looking at GMT. So from the time we spoke yesterday till now, we still see an increase of 300,000 cases around the world. Okay. But in the last few hours, when we're counting the 5th of May, then we see the 2,300 tabulated so far.
So it's about 3 hours.
Right. So it's about 3 hours. So that still could be a bit staggering if you're looking at 3 hours and we're looking at 2,000 deaths already. By the time the 24 hours elapses, we're likely to see more. So this is what they're counting from midnight to midnight, right? Okay. So, yeah, this is what it looks like around
Africa-wise?
Let's look at Africa. We still have the numbers that we saw in those countries where they had 6,000 and above cases, for instance. We still see the same. The numbers are not changing rapidly per se. Spain still at almost 250,000 now. So their deaths compared to their cases is 10%, right? 10% of those. And looking at the same number, slightly more than 10% in Italy. Not quite 10% in the United States. The UK at 190,000, them also slightly over 10%. France, the same thing, but Germany well under 3% of their deaths, of their cases result in death. All right. So if we're looking at Africa, South Africa now, yesterday we saw South Africa at almost 6,000 cases. Today we see South Africa at 7,220 with no new recorded deaths. Egypt at 6,800. Morocco at 5,053. Algeria at 4,648. And we look down the line then into other African countries. Côte d'Ivoire, 1,432 cases.
These numbers around Africa have shot up so drastically.
Yes, they have. Again,
because I'm just looking back at what we were looking at. On the 20th of April, that's about 15 days ago, Egypt had 3,400 cases.
Yeah.
And now we're at above more than 6,000 cases.
You're right. Egypt almost...
And for a long time it had stuck at, below 3,000. And now we are seeing that there's such a serious jump to over 6,000 cases.
Again, because testing is happening and more rapid testing is happening. people, I think, are hunkering down and getting into testing. Nigeria is now at almost 3,000 cases, whereby just 3 weeks ago, they were well under 500.
Yeah.
Okay. And so more testing is taking place, and we can see the effects of this. Tunisia with 1,018, Niger with 755, DRC with 682. Interestingly, DRC has stayed around that number for a couple of weeks now. Kenya, we've seen at 490, and we see that there's been a ramp up in testing here as well, but still remaining at those numbers. Gabon at 367, Equatorial Guinea at 315, Rwanda at 261, an increase of 2 from yesterday, and still recording 0 deaths. Congo Brazzaville at 236, Sierra Leone at 178, Cape Verde at 175.
Uganda and
Liberia at 166. And then if we look at Uganda still at under 100 cases, interestingly enough. I'm even trying to find them where they disappear. Yeah, 97 cases in Uganda and 0 deaths.
Okay, so they're still increasing in terms of numbers.
Yes.
So maybe this is when we are getting into the Africa phase of this pandemic.
It could be.
Where the numbers now start rising. There's more rapid testing happening. There's, more efforts of testing that's taking place, and therefore more numbers being recorded. Because for a long time, numbers in Africa were low and were not even increasing by such a huge margin.
Initially, remember, when the pandemic started, Africa was only testing in 2 countries, South Africa, and I think the other one was Egypt. So there was limited testing. The second one was limited testing in terms of capacity and the labs that are available to test. So you can imagine the logistics it was taking for you to ship samples from country to country to get testing.
Okay.
Then now, when countries got the capacity to test, there was a challenge of diagnostic kits. Then those were obviously donated. Then you got the challenge of the other components that you need in the diagnostics to simple things as the swabs. So those bit of challenges and teething challenges has been an issue with Africa. That is why, for me, it's not a surprise that South Africa, Egypt are way ahead in terms of numbers. Not necessarily that they have
more cases,
but that they have been able to identify. So as we see, when we get to see more African countries testing, then you may get that, our numbers are not so different from the global numbers. Yeah.
But in terms of deaths as well, the deaths are also rising.
Interestingly, but we're not seeing at the percentage. I'm just looking at another report here, and the deaths in Africa, compared to the cases, are well under 5% in most, and in some countries recording 0.03% of the total cases, 0.1%, 0.17%.
In Rwanda, 0%.
0% in Uganda, 0%. So well under 5% if we're looking at comparative analysis here. That's what you see.
Which anyway is still in keeping with what we are seeing globally, the case fatality rate of the pandemic. But in the end, anyway, we do not expect that there will be so many deaths in Africa, because if you look at our population curve, a majority of African population is young, as opposed to the Western or the countries in the global north, and that is why they were affected some more, because they have an elderly population. Look at Italy, for example. So for Africa, the young population might actually work in our favor, because then your young population is likely to, put up a fight against the coronavirus, if at all they are affected. And if you look at Kenya, for example, the bulk of our cases is aged between 30 and 39 years. So that means we do not expect to see deaths, really, because we expect that these are a healthy population.
And the deaths that we have so far, how many deaths do we have? 16?
24.
24 deaths.
Yeah,
age?
24.
Age range?
Let me just get you that document. I think I've seen it here. But in terms of age-wise, the eldest were from 60. 60 years and above. Just give me a minute. I retrieve that document. Here it is. So we've had one death 0 to 9 years. Remember the boy who was in KNH?
Mm-hmm.
Then 30 to 39, we've had 3 deaths. 40 to 49, 3 deaths. 50 to 59, 6. And more than 60 years, 11. Making
Okay.
it sort of
Okay.
24.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then the cases that we have between 30 and 39, we have 71 males and 54 females. That was the day before yesterday. This is the report for the day before yesterday. 71 males, 54. So that is 125 if you compare, which is like a quarter
Okay.
of our population. So we expect that we will probably
Be able to
survive
come out
this.
of the curve.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at weather shortly and then come out, take a look at today's proverb and today's headlines. Good morning. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. 18 minutes after 6.
It's mostly cloudy in Nairobi this morning at 17 degrees. It's still going to be a wet week recorded around the country. We're looking at the chances of showers quite early at highs of 25 and lows of 16. In Nyeri this morning, it's also cloudy and rain showers have already started coming down, likely to be the situation for most of the day with highs of 24 and lows of 16. Nakuru is cloudy at 16 degrees. The rains will start very early here as well. 24 degrees the high and lows of 14. Eldoret is clear skies this morning. However, it will not last for long because the showers will check in early with highs of 22 and lows of 13. Rain showers have begun in Kisumu, 21 degrees right now. We'll see the rainy conditions throughout the day, well into tonight, with highs of 27 and lows of 19. Prepare for a wet day in Malindi as well. Light rain showers already being experienced, highs of 29 and lows of 25, with thunderstorms forecasted for later. It's cloudy conditions in Mombasa and the rain will come down here as well, highs of 29 and lows of 25. Taking a look then into East Africa in Kampala, it's 20 degrees and mostly cloudy for now. Rain showers are coming in later with highs of 26 and lows of 19. It'll be a rainy, thundery afternoon in Dar es Salaam with highs of 28 and lows of 24. It's mostly cloudy right now. It'll change very soon, though. Further south in Johannesburg, it's clear skies all through, sunny conditions with highs of 22 and lows of 8. Lagos is clear. When the sun comes up, it'll be 27 at the highest point in the morning. The afternoon will see higher temperatures of 34, coming to an all low of 26. In New York, it's partly cloudy at 11 degrees. Later it's still night there. However, we'll see through the day highs of 19 and lows of 7. Paris at 13 degrees is mostly cloudy at this point. It'll be a rainy day there as well. Highs of 17 and lows of 9. And finally in London for now, it's mostly cloudy at 9 degrees. We'll see highs of 14 and lows of 6.
Chilled Spice.
At 20 past 6, this is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room this morning, Eric Latif, Dr. Mercy Korir, and Nduoko. CT Muga is away for the week. Now, let's start with today's proverb. Now that I speak of CT Muga. Ears that do not listen to advice accompany the head when it is chopped off. This is an African proverb. Ears that do not listen to advice accompany the head when it is
Chopped off.
self-explanatory, isn't it? Ain't it?
In it.
So let's take a look at the headlines. What do you have, Ndu?
Okay, on the front page of The Standard, how crisis is messing up our children, front and center. CS Ministry for Education, Professor George Magoha. As they skip and jump around homes, have you thought about what prolonged school closure means to them? Experts warn effects may last a lifetime. So what they say is that there would be dropouts. Closures make children vulnerable to retrogressive activities that hurt learning, such as drugs and early marriage. Learners who depend on school for meals, vaccines, and sanitary pads, missing this may alter their lives forever. Closures to hurt young schoolgoers the most, as they least likely to be helped by digital learning. Injustice. Online digital learning opens a stage for unequal access, setting the stage for future historical injustices. And playtime. Lack of social skills acquired in the playground, especially the young learners, to last for a lifetime. There's a quote here by C.S. Magoha. When government opens schools, we shall treat all children as equal, and every child will be given the content they don't have. For now, what makes me go to sleep? Because I am focusing on the disease, not so much on going back to school. And unfortunately, I think some of these things are a bit sensationalist right now. I don't
Sound
think
like, oh my God, because
the world
they've
is
been
ending.
They have been on holiday, because they've been on holiday. School pupils have been on holiday for the last 3 weeks.
Right.
It? So they've been on holiday. Now you're extending that holiday by an extra week.
And suddenly we're going to end up with pregnant, drunk, drug-laden teenagers in the next few months because of this.
malnourished.
I think it's a bit... it sounds exciting and it's stuff made for the movies, but I don't think that we're getting to that point.
You think it's too early?
Come
Early days.
Come on.
But it's not saying that this is what's happening now. It could happen.
It could
Oh,
happen.
no,
It's
it's
a-
Anything could happen. The world
headline,
would end.
the headline is actually saying how crisis is messing
It's,
up.
right now, it's messing them
Yeah,
up,
yeah.
according to this headline. But like you're saying, anything, the world could end. Anything could happen.
If
COVID
the
could
world
kill us
ends,
all.
then there's no. We can't talk about what will happen for them in a
Yeah.
lifetime. There'll be no lifetime.
There'll be
But I don't
one.
think we're here yet.
It's too early.
No, I mean, come on.
Dr. What do you think?
No, I think it's for me. I take it as a warning. Like it's a risk. It's something that can happen. Teenagers at home, idle, not necessarily following what KICD is doing. It's a risk. So I don't think experts are at fault telling us, this might happen. So watch out. So
These things do make sense,
they do.
but
Not
over
that it will happen.
over a
Interestingly
prolonged
enough-
period. If you're saying, I think what they should have done in this report of theirs is say, if kids stay on prolonged holiday or prolonged non-schooling for this long, starting with let's say 6 months,
But it's
but you can
already
just
prolonged. Because if you look at it, they were supposed to be reporting
so
back to school
3 weeks,
yesterday.
3 weeks.
So now they
3
have
weeks
another
to
4
closure,
weeks.
right?
Normally, when they have three or 4 weeks at home, things still happen. Now you've added them; it will be 7 weeks.
But interestingly, this is unique. This
How
holiday
long
is
is the
unique in
December
the sense
holiday?
that they're
The
actually
December holiday, even
is 2
today,
months.
is 2 months.
It's the whole of November
Yeah.
and December. They go back in January. What are we talking about? And this holiday is unique in the sense that they are actually at home. They're not gallivanting the streets, doing things, coming home at midnight, whatever, open to the vices that may then turn them. They're actually at home.
But
They're
these
not
are the
going
ones,
anywhere.
you're talking about the ones in urban centers.
Yeah.
The ones in
the
rural areas.
rural areas,
They're the
all
ones
over
who
the
are actually
place.
exposed to the point number one. Closures may make children vulnerable to retrogressive activities that hurt learning, such as drugs and early
Early marriages.
marriages.
This is
Definitely.
true. And I also do agree that in this sense, there are quite a number of children who go to school not just for education. They go to school because they can get a
For
meal
nutrition.
in the morning, they
Yep.
can get a meal in
Which
the
is
afternoon.
the second
Yeah.
one.
Yes, and by the time they get home in the evening, a lot of them don't have another meal,
True.
and they're ready to go for the next day.
True.
So I do agree that in terms of social amenities and things like that, there are many who are suffering. And I also do agree that there are many children then who are exposed to things like abuse at home. So this is one situation
And we've
whereby
actually seen cases
they dread to go on
arising
holiday.
the cases.
right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of children who dread to be at home during the holidays. So, and to expose them to a longer period when they are at home and there's no escape, as it were, I do agree in that sense. Maybe these others whereby we see that, and if you look at
Playtime
other-
as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I do agree that in those cases, this could happen. Maybe a warning
This raises
sounds
some
out,
issues, actually.
yes.
So
This
it's
second
a
point,
warning.
It's
the
a
second
warning.
point about the kids who go to school where they access meals, they access vaccination, they access sanitary pads and such. What is being done about those?
Yeah, what happens
Because
to
we should be
them
looking
now?
back at the numbers of how many kids do we look at using the school as an avenue to feed them, as an avenue to ensure that they get the nutritional balance that they need, ensuring that they get the kind of support, sanitary pads and such. What are we doing for such?
I don't really think it's been considered.
This
I've
is
not heard of
raises.
any.
Yeah.
But I think it should have, those services should have continued, really, because with masking, cleaning, hygiene, physical distancing, people can still come to school and access. You can give them a timetable in which to come and collect their sanitary towels or get vaccinated or get their meals. You can organize in such a way.
Continue the school feeding program.
Exactly. Or instead of feeding them in school, whatever you would have had in its raw form, let them take it home and they can be fed at home. So I think, there are pertinent issues
that emerge out of this report.
Yeah, and as you say, policies should be made with the most vulnerable in mind. So really, I hope, apart from tabling this in Parliament, the ministry, I hope, laid out a plan on how to support.
Yeah. The other headline in the Standard: not a single drop alarm over Kenya's blood banks.
I don't even
We're
know.
back
Why
there.
am I not surprised?
Yeah, I know. Mercy
Is this alarm? Is this new alarm?
It's not alarm.
Is this,
It's
what
not.
is this?
There's nothing to be surprised about.
It's a lest we forget kind of story.
Yeah.
It's not an alarm.
Lest
because
we
know.
forget. Advisory team tells the Parliament that there is no single unit of blood in the country's major reserve. No single.
None.
Previously there was some blood.
It was expired.
Oh, okay.
Or there were no reagent kits
Okay.
to be able to test it.
Yeah, so it expired in storage.
So
And
it has to be done away
then
with.
remember and I remember we did a link with you that day, and the next day, that was on 12th, on 13th, the CS was announcing
The first case of
corona
COVID, yes.
corona case, and then everything went.
So this story just disappeared, basically.
There's been some things happening in the background, like changes in the leadership at the KNBTS, Kenya National Blood Transfusion Services, the advisory team that was gazetted to work on this, which is chaired by Abbas Gule. So there's been things happening in the background in order to sort this out. But now remember, the reason there's not a single drop of blood, we instituted curfew measures. We instituted restrictions of movement.
Yep.
And then there was a whole scare of coronavirus and everything, so no one is going to hospital. I remember most of our blood was on a replacement basis. So there are no people going to hospital, so there are no people in quote unquote in need of blood urgently. So then there are no donors. And then there are no people randomly walking in hospitals because visits are limited to one person. So getting blood, even if somebody really needs it urgently, becomes difficult. Now, the other thing is, prior to the announcement of the coronavirus, we had issues of funding. Remember, PEPFAR funding ended, and the government had not put in measures to stand on its own 2 feet. And they were negotiating with World Bank for a 1 billion loan so that they can, support the blood services or the blood transfusion services. So what that had meant was, from the beginning of the year, there were no blood donor drives. Because of the funding, I don't know, vehicles don't have fuel, they haven't been maintained, there are no staff,
No
all of
drivers.
those logistics issues. So we did not have blood. And then coronavirus happens. No one is doing blood drives. Because how are you going to do it?
I have a story of a woman who went in for procedure last week, and she had to. So she needed, obviously, during the procedure, during the surgery, she needed extra blood. So the hospital told her that they would use what they had. However, after the procedure, she had to get it replaced. Just like you said, it works on a replacement point of view. Is that sustainable, though? I mean,
Of course, it's not.
I mean,
it's not.
You need to have a bank. The reason why you have a bank
is to have reserves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for you to say you have adequate reserves, you should have at least 1% of your population donating blood. So in Kenya, that's why our target is 500,000. On a good year, not really a good year, but last year we did 164,000 units of blood. That's not even half of what we need It's not, because of all of this mismanagement, funding issues, lack of planning, lack of foresight, all of those things. But we hope, because I've seen the advisory team, it's made of serious fellows, that something will happen, and that the 1 billion that
was to come from the World Bank
is utilized properly. And I hope this is the one time where the policy makers or the people who are tasked with actually making sure these policies are done well and are implemented, listen to the advisory team. Yeah.
Let's come out of this break and look at the terms of reference for that advisory team. What exactly are they supposed to advise on, and for how long, and what happens after they present their report? Right, 27 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. So you're back on the roads. Very busy morning. 5 a.m. Matatus all over. People crisscrossing the road.
Was there
Everybody's
an announcement
back.
and we didn't hear?
Yes, there was. You didn't hear. It's 27 minutes to 7.
Okay, I don't know where y'all are going, but apparently everybody's going everywhere this morning. Mombasa Road already, we have traffic, and it started as far back as the SGR about 30 minutes ago. There's a hold-up right around the airport junction. It'll take you all the way to General Motors. Thereafter, it's not so bad. In a little bit, we're going to be looking around the country and see the different roads that have been closed or shut down because the rains have been so crazy. So we'll let you know how to plan your travel outside of the county. The roadblocks are still up, guys, so I don't understand where people are going. You're not allowed to leave the metropolis. All right, Namanga Kitengela Road is looking good this morning. Right around Jogo Road, there is some traffic getting into the CBD. Actually, not some traffic, it's bumper to bumper right at the City Stadium roundabout and then into the CBD from there. Thika Road at the Pangani Underpass is, yes, bumper to bumper. Everybody's coming into the city. I don't know what's going on. All right, we're going to look outside of the county in a bit. We'll look at Mombasa, and we'll look at going towards the Rift and see what roads have been closed and what you cannot use for those who are in those spots. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter.
So on this 5th day of May 2020,
Spice
the standard
FM.
is bringing back
Spice up your life.
had almost gotten forgotten. Not a single drop alarm over Kenya's blood.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
A report that was a presentation that was made by a team that was formed by CS.
Mornings done right. 94.4
94.4
Spice FM, Nairobi.
Parliament. And basically what Gulet was saying is that the staff are demoralized at the Kenya National Blood Transfusion Service. Staff are demoralized. Equipment has totally collapsed. When we were there last Wednesday, we were told that you could not even get a single unit of blood. Dr. Mercy, you have followed up on this blood story for a while, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, tell us about this particular task force. Whatever, is it a task force? Is it a committee? What is it? An advisory?
It's an advisory committee to advise and oversee the supply and utilization of blood and blood products. So the chairperson is Abbas Gule and 6 other members and 3 joint secretaries. So their work really, according to the Gazette notice on 24th of April, is to advise on matters pertaining to blood supply, including those directly affecting the practice of transfusion medicine in hospitals and health facilities, communication and social mobilization or marketing in donor mobilization, because, donors are a critical part of the blood donation system.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other one is on facilitate knowledge management and availability of information and data on blood and blood products utilization management practices. You realize that in Kenya, getting some data is usually really difficult. I know when with the PEPFAR funding, there was one of the line funding was on what they call a BEX, a blood I forget the E always. System, a blood management system. I'll get it before we get out of the blood discussion. So it is basically a digital system of managing blood, so that you know if you need A positive blood units, how many do you have in store, what is your deficit, who has it in what part of the country, such that on a click of a button you have a full picture of the blood situation in the country. Right. So basically that, and just the inflows and outflows, and also have data on your blood donors, and then the part of hemovigilance, where, remember, this is blood with antibodies and whatnot. Somebody who's receiving it may get a transfusion reaction.
Right.
So you need to be able to trace it back and find out what in the system went wrong. So that is the whole management system. And then their role is also to develop guidelines and manuals for the use of blood products. And blood products here is when you donate a whole unit of blood, that can be broken down into 4 different components. The red blood cells, what you call the fresh frozen plasma, the cryoprecipitate, and packed red cell. I've said that.
The
packed red cells, platelets, cryoprecipitate, and fresh frozen plasma, which have different uses, so that 1 unit of blood can be utilized by 4 different people, as opposed to 1 unit going to one person. Then that way you have a wider use of the blood product that you have. And then obviously to provide leadership in identification and design of blood utilization management initiatives, design a data management framework, and as a country we really do badly with data, because you see, with data is supposed to inform certain decisions. So if you do not have data really, then it means you're shooting in the dark. And then to institutionalize blood management in support of county governments' participation. I remember the blood management has been a national government function, but then a bulk of the healthcare services are in the counties. So there's been a disconnect between the national and the county government. So this hopefully will sort out that, so that there's a seamless structure in managing blood. And then, so in a nutshell, that's what they are supposed to do. And
does
they
it have a tenure? Because it sounds like they are the board for the Kenya National Blood Transfusion Service. All these things that they're supposed to do, come up with structures, institutionalize, create a framework.
So from the same Gazette notice, I think their tenure is 12 months, because they have to submit quarterly reports to the CS, and then in 12 months submit a final report. So my prayer is that this report will not gather dust in a shelf somewhere in Afya House, as have been all other reports.
Other attempts at addressing anything in this country.
Not just blood.
Because you can imagine, blood here, if you are talking about beyond 0 maternal deaths, you cannot talk about that without blood. Hemorrhage is one of the leading causes of maternal deaths. We have people on treatment for cancer who need blood. As in, we can list a whole,
Blood is everything.
Blood is everything.
So and then now when they're discussing this, they went to Parliament because they were contributing to a bill that's before Parliament. The Kenya National Blood Transfusion Bill 2020. So we are coming up with amendments to the existing structure and management of blood. How do these merge together? How do these come together? We have this advisory council that's working on stuff. We have new management of the Kenya National Blood Transfusion Service. We have a new law that's coming into being formulated for management of blood in the country. It appears that there's good work that's happening in terms of blood, but is it harmonized? Is there a likelihood that one could end up with a law before the end of the year, and then the advisory committee or council is trying to catch up with what the law now provides?
No. The work of this advisory committee, really, because they are contributing to this particular bill, which will become an act, is to make sure that it's practical and it's something that can work. So they are, from all of those things that we've listed as part of their function, they're supposed to make sure it appears in this bill, so that now when it becomes the law, then it's easy to implement, so that there's a seamless flow. So I see their work more like making sure that we sort out the blood issues once and for all. And one of the things to do is make sure that there's legislation to cover that, and the legislation covers it end to end. Not that you do this today and in another 2-3 months' time you're finding difficulties.
Yeah.
So they're supposed to have seen it in the long
Well
term.
ahead.
This is one of the problems of dealing with donor-funded programs, unfortunately, because what it does is that it creates a crutch for countries. So the last 5-10 years, in terms of blood, you didn't hear these stories. You didn't hear that there was a blood crisis in the country when this program was being donor funded. You never heard that there was a shortage. You never heard that there was mismanagement at the helm of the blood service unit. You never heard any of this. Now, suddenly, when the donor funding disappears, is when you see the underbelly of all of this nonsense. And that's the best name that I can use to describe for this right now. In fact, it's the most polite. This is one of the problems. When you have a program in countries that's supposed to be developing the country itself that is donor funded, it becomes something that people lean on heavily and then don't do what they are required by their office to do. So suddenly people have to work. Somebody then has to fulfill a mandate for which they were given, and then you see actually there was no work that was being done at all.
But at the same time, unfortunately, if you even look at the terms of reference for this advisory committee, there's an element of how to harmonize donor funding.
Yeah.
There is no element of how to ensure that this blood transfusion and management is well catered for in the national budget.
And which it should.
Actually,
Which it should.
Is
I
it there?
remember when the CS Kagwe, because I think it was just like a week from being sworn in, and this was the biggest crisis at the time that he was coming to handle, and he said that we'll hold him to account on this, that we cannot continue relying on donor funding for our blood.
Yes.
So the 1 billion from the World Bank was a stopgap.
Should be it.
That was a stopgap because now we had a crisis. And if you can see, that 1 billion is actually part of the 5 billion from the World Bank on the COVID response. Because now what the bank did was just to combine the two, the COVID response and this one. And then so you just
facility.
get out your 1 billion and go and sort out the blood crisis, because that was a big crisis at the time. So it was a stopgap. So part of the mandate for this committee is to ensure that we can run our own blood transfusion services.
We should be
Internally.
able to. Absolutely.
Yes.
Because this is
We should be
It
able
should be.
to.
it's one of the most basic things. I mean,
It is.
And the
when you
resources
talk
right
about
here.
the source for the blood is
Here.
all of us.
All of
Yes.
us.
You're talking about just 1% of the 46 million of
That's
us.
half a million people.
460,000 people
Five
that are. If 460,000 people just donated blood,
1 pint.
one
Right?
pint,
That
Yeah,
carries-
just one.
1 pint.
I remember
That's
that one, you can divide it into 4.
and
Into
can
4.
and can save 4 people.
So that's 2 million people.
so you're able to actually serve 2 million people with just the donation by half 1% of the population.
Exactly.
Already, there's resources available.
Yes.
Second thing is just the management of now this blood and creating those structures.
It's the
It's
management.
possible for us to finance this from our national budget and make it run without necessarily going back and saying, oh, donor funding, we didn't get money from PEPFAR, we didn't get money from the World Bank, this is a loan, this is
Crutch.
management here.
Crutch.
Just getting ourselves, in that crutch, as you say. We need to get ourselves out of this and be able to manage better.
And for me, I think the PEPFAR funding coming to an end and them not budging to extend is a good thing.
It's a good thing.
It was a blessing.
It's a blessing in disguise, because we have to wake up.
It'll
For how
force you to
long-
do what you need to
For
do.
how long do we depend on donor funding? They have been here since 1998, when the blood transfusion services was set up in 1998 after the bomb blast. PEPFAR came in 2005. I think when
Contributing to the war against HIV/AIDS.
Yes, that's what it
Yes,
came in.
yeah.
And so how they came into the blood transfusion services was because blood transfusion was one of the major ways in which HIV was transmitted.
Yeah.
Because without proper screening and all of those things, then you could have HIV is one of them, blood transfusion transmissible infections, and that between one person to the other. So that's how they came into the blood services. But then, as their funding was tapering down, the governments, because there have been several from the Kibaki government and two Uhuru governments, were supposed to have been increasing the funding so that by the time these ones are down, your graph is up in terms of funding.
Yep.
But now what happened is people there's usually an attitude where you just say, they will extend.
We'll deal with it later.
They'll
give us more money.
They'll give us more money. They'll extend. So I am happy and sorry to Kenyans, but I hope they do not, no donor comes in because we need to put our money there and make sure that it works. And the second thing is that in terms of the structures of the blood transfusion services, you just need to strengthen them in the counties because at the national level, we have the headquarters that supplies several regions, and then regionally we have the satellite centers. So we just need to beef them up, equip them, and we have trained laboratory technicians in the country, for example, who are tamarking here looking for work. Engage them to do, the testing. Engage them, plus nurses and other healthcare cadres to go and mobilize and do blood donor drives and get as much blood as possible. So in terms of human resource, we do have trained people tamarking. In terms of infrastructure, because every county has a county referral hospital, you need to just beef up and make sure they have a blood unit, a blood transfusion unit.
And it works. Everything falls into place. 12 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
24/7.
It's 10 to 7. This is The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room this morning, Eric Latif, Nduoko, and Dr. Mercy Korir, our guest host for the season. The Daily Nation headline got a couple of headlines. First is the human trials for COVID-19 drugs set to start in Kenya. Local researchers are participating in an international study, and they are seeking final approvals from 2 agencies to test 3 drugs on Kenyans. The headline is Ugali will cost more, our maize is rotten.
No.
Millers have been given the green light to import 4 million bags because all the maize in the country's food reserves is unfit for humans, and there's some human who's supposed to be in charge of the food reserves. Feed that human with this maize.
Okay, let's just hold on here. Noah Wekesa told us in March that there were no reserves. That is what he said. You can find that newspaper. We'll find it, I'm sure, by tomorrow.
And Noah Wekesa is?
Oh, Wekesa is the chair.
Of the reserves.
Of the reserves. He's the guy at the helm. He told us that there were no reserves, and he said that this maize that farmers are crying to be bought from them doesn't exist. In terms of the barns are empty. This is what he said. No sooner than that had been said, 2 days later, literally, we had the CS for Agriculture telling us that, actually, we don't have enough right? We don't have enough. We're going to have to buy from outside. Less than a month down the line, this is what we're being told. We actually do have maize, but it's not fit for human consumption, so we have to import. Sorry, but somebody's looking for a reason to import this maize from outside. Somebody's looking for a reason to bypass these farmers. Somebody's looking for a reason to bring in maize that you can now sell at a cheaper price and bypass the farmers. Sometimes it's just good to call a spade and not a big spoon. What are we talking about?
Are you saying that the farmers
the reserves in the country
have the maize?
You
Because the reserves have rotten maize.
Have we seen that the maize is rotten? Can it be proven to us that the maize is actually rotten or that it doesn't exist?
But that's
essentially before Ekasa told us there was none. So how is there suddenly maize and it's rotten? Which one is it? Was it rotten or does it not exist? Which one is it?
Maybe that's what he meant.
March is just the other day.
March was just 2 months ago.
Maybe that's what he meant.
So if there are no reserves, where did they get reserves in?
Now it's rotten.
That now has rotten.
Which is it?
There's absolutely no way the National Food Reserve would be empty.
So why did he open his mouth and say it?
He said it's insufficient.
No. He said I'll get you that paper.
Get us actually the article.
I will
so
find
we can see
it.
that
Tomorrow I will bring it to you because that one shook me. And I said, how is it that a country does not have reserves, even one like this?
That's what I'm saying. Some of these people, the Strategic Food Reserve chairman had warned that the country was facing a crippling food shortage, right? It sold all its stock and could not replenish because of the high asking prices by sellers. So this is what he had said.
I want to vindicate Ndu.
Thank you.
This was on 26th March. Maize reserve stores empty.
Thank you.
Yes.
Says Strategic Food Reserve. No, I guess our stores have nil stock. We sold our stock of 4 million bags last year, and we have not purchased.
Yep. He had said that time, we asked the ministry to hasten the restocking of the national reserves, but did not get a response. Now we have no reserves in the stores. So the Strategic Food Reserve had gone to the ministry and said, all right, so we have sold off all the stock that we had. Please facilitate us to restock. Guys at the Agriculture Ministry were like, tutakuongelesha. Hapo, we'll call you when we are done with what we are doing. Now, they've told people to import. So this is what we are dealing with. And that's why I was saying, let's look at who's responsible
again,
somewhere.
Which maize is rotten? Which one?
Which one is rotten?
Which maize? Which one is
the
rotten?
The little that is there in the store is rotten.
But there was none.
There was none.
According to them, there was nothing.
And
in
the adjectives
store.
he used did not say a little bit
He
left.
said nil stock.
Goja, let's see what.
You don't believe this?
I'm just going to read the story.
It's doing you like
that plate of ugali will soon cost you more if plans by Agriculture CS Peter Munya to open the market for importation of maize succeed. Munya was telling the Senate Agriculture Committee that all the maize under the strategic grain reserves has been contaminated by aflatoxin, a harmful and cancer-causing mold, making it unfit for human consumption. So according to Munya, there's some maize in the SFR, but it's contaminated. According to the chairman of the SFR, we have run out of stock.
And they work together, these two fellows.
There is a problem.
There's a big problem here.
Big problem there. And then my question is, okay, you want to open up for importation. Have you bought all the maize from the farmers?
Have you mopped up what you have in the country?
In the country. Because I know that there's been... The weather hasn't been so bad. I'm not a farmer. I cannot speak confidently about this. But I would assume that our farmers in the bread basket have maize that, before we say we open up for importation.
The government has still been buying maize. This Senator Naomi Shinyonga said it's saddening that maize is rotting in government stores due to poor storage when Kenyans are going without food, right? So she was questioning why the government is rushing to allow maize import instead of preserving what farmers have produced. Before the government abandoned the business of buying and storing maize some few weeks ago, the National Cereals and Produce Board was the main buyer and the stockist of the grains.
You see the problem? So
there's a whole issue here of, do we have enough maize from the farmers? Are we actually buying this maize? Going back to the scandal that we had about maize and purchase of maize by the NCPB and the Strategic Grain Reserve on
where the cartels reign.
Who is being paid for maize that has been bought by farmers?
You see the problem that we talked about with blood?
Same
it's
game.
The same thing here.
Same
thing. You want to bring from outside, but the resource that you have here, you've not tapped it, you've not managed it, you've not accounted for it. You haven't, but you want to bring from outside. And there's so much that you can do here within the country. It's like Nigeria. You have oil and you have oil products. You're able to maintain an entire national grid for another country. But the people in your country don't have power.
Don't have power.
The same disease, same symptoms everywhere. The symptoms you want to look at, blood, same thing.
Same thing.
Maize, same thing. Even COVID that visited us yesterday, same thing. What are we doing? What's going on?
Now, the people that we pay to be the watchdogs, these are the parliamentarians, right? So this CS was speaking before Senate committee. And the Senate committee asked all these questions, but you know what's going to happen in the end? The Senate committee is going to approve the importation of the maize. Questions are going to be asked, just here, 1-2 questions, but further accountability is never demanded.
I always wonder because Senate committees, National Assembly committees, when there's something, they will summon the CS. There'll be discussions, but there's never any follow through. So sometimes I usually even wonder, is it necessary?
There's always the allegation that whenever you hear a committee is sitting and discussing a matter, it's a sponsored issue. There's somebody out there who has sponsored this matter. It's basically, let's take this through Parliament, or I think, two people who are fighting in terms of business, two business rivals fighting. One, you sponsor a question in Parliament, the question is asked, the CS is ruffled up, and so the CS cedes some ground in favor of the offended party that's in business. It's all about business.
Are you saying Parliament is a sanitization ground?
That's the allegation that's out there.
Because
it's
supposed to represent the people. It's tragic.
This hamster wheel, the hamster that's on this wheel that keeps going round and round, has developed some serious muscles. And at some point, what is going to happen is going to break the wheel and break out of this cage. Because this is ridiculous. Can't be the same thing over and over and over again. Individuals come in and enter into a rotten system and continue to go. Change the damn system. What are we dealing with here?
COVID-19 is exposing a lot, and we'll be discussing that in the 8 o'clock hour. We'll be joined by Wanjiro Gekonyo of the Institute for Social Accountability. And in the next hour, we'll talk about what happened, what we saw happening yesterday in Kariobangi, some demolition of houses. So who is responsible for that? But as we go to the top of the hour, today's proverb, ears that do not listen to advice accompany the head when it is chopped off. This is an African proverb. What do you think it means?
Omo, you will go.
Don't listen to advice.
You will go.
Accompany the head when it's just chopped off. Good morning. This is A Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now 7 o'clock.
All right, let's look outside of the county of Nairobi for now and see certain roads have been affected, right, because of the flooding. In the Rift, George Momanyi Road erupted, literally. Tarmac has opened, so that road is not available for use. You need to be careful if you're planning your journeys away from George Momanyi Road today because you will not be able to use it. The Mumias Bungoma Road, the bridge that connects Bungoma to Kakamega to Busia, that no longer exists, so you cannot use that road today. Kenha tells us that they'll be working on that. That's the Kenya Highways Authority will be working on that. Kakamega, Webuye, Bungoma, that also, the bridges that connect there and then leading out towards Eldoret and Uganda, that road cannot be used either. So yes, you need to plan your journey. You can use part of the Kakamega Webuye Road. Unfortunately, however, the bridges have been submerged, so you really don't know where you're going. Ayewo in Nyando, Kisumu East, Usenge Majimbo Road in Bondo. Those have all been washed away. So you need to plan your journeys. And we're looking at the Rift and Western Kenya at this point. Over 14 roads have been washed away. And in terms of how you need to move today, you need to use an alternate route. We'll give you more information about what's happening in other parts of the country as concerns road usage. Spice 7KE, give us more information where you see it.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times.
It's also Kenya's biggest
Oko,
conversation.
Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications.
Away for the week. Yesterday we saw news coming out of Kariobangi. What was it that was happening in Kariobangi?
Let me take you back
before we get there.
Yeah, before we get there, let me take you back to Munya. Agriculture. Without food, really.
Kwisha
Sisi. So in the same parliament, Munya was being quizzed about 1.5 billion coffee funds, and senators were accusing him of, or rather, the ministry of bias in distributing money, which went to Kiambu, Murang'a, Nyeri, Kirinyaga, Tharaka Nithi, and Meru counties. This is on page 2 of the Standard. And so senators were wondering why those counties, yet you find there are counties in Western and Rift Valley that are coffee producing. That the only other county apart from those ones in Central, the Mount Kenya region, that received money was Machakos. So then here Cherargei was asking why, for example, Kiambu was given money, yet farmers have been uprooting their coffee in favor of real estate. So there's 1.5 billion that has gone into a coffee fund. It's laden with a lot of questions. Then the CS response is that there's more money coming in September without addressing the issues that have been raised.
Don't worry, more money
is coming.
Relax.
Yeah.
So is Cherargei trying to imply that because we have seen uprooting of coffee in Kiambu, there's no more coffee in Kiambu? Even him is joking.
Well,
because you really can't base your argument on that, because you've seen a couple of coffee farms converting into real estate. It doesn't mean that there's no more farming.
From this story, from this story, it was as an example of poking holes.
Like by example. So why are you giving Kiambu and yet
they are and you have left out other coffee growing regions in Western and Rift Valley. Yeah, you've given Machakos.
So basically here the thing here is that this is favoring Mount Kenya.
Yeah.
Right?
In so many words.
In so many words. This is this cash is basically gone into Mount Kenya and the president's backyard and the Kieleweke side. This is the Tanga Kieleweke fight coming into parliament.
And then this is 1.5 billion. I don't know. When did billions become very little money in Kenya?
Ever since it was dammed away.
1.5 billion. Wasn't this enough to distribute to farmers across the country? The main coffee growing regions.
Yeah, like equitably.
Yeah, wouldn't everyone have gotten something?
Don't say that this one goes this side, into just this region, and then September you wait. We'll see whether we can give you the next batch.
Yeah, and I don't know why they're calling it a World Bank donation, because this is a loan, though it's on low interest. But it's a loan. It means we are paying for it. It's not free money. We are paying for it.
But don't we see the same kind of attitude whereby last year the previous CS was given, direct order from the president and asked, you need to pay these farmers. I'm not dealing with this drama. Pay these guys. They've done their job. Give them the money. We've taken the maize from them. Why won't you pay them? And it's kind of like, oh, don't worry. Relax. More money will come and we'll have that sorted. We'll sort it. Same attitude.
Not answering the initial
question. Where did the money that was allocated, where did it go? The problem here is that we ask these questions in so many, on so many occasions, that where did the money go? And what people are looking for really is an explanation.
What I can assure you is that no money has been stolen. And we're going to do a deep audit into this. In fact,
on my watch.
Under my watch, nothing will be stolen.
But how are you assuring us that no money has been stolen and an audit has not been done?
But this is the things you say, and it will sound sensationalist, and you'll try to cover it. Well, all we're asking is to tell us where it went.
Yep.
This is it. Just say. But by virtue of the fact that you don't want to say and you want to cover it up with all of these other nice words means that you're hiding something, unfortunately. That's what it looks like.
When the Anglo leasing scandal first emerged, then Justice Minister Kiraito Murungi said, no money has been lost. We have heard this story of no money has been lost so many times. 1.3 billion shillings that is not very well being accounted for by the health ministry for fighting COVID over the 12 days or so. No money has been lost.
Yet your own document said money used.
Yes.
So where did it go?
Where did it go if it hasn't been used?
You've got to understand what we mean by budgeting and what we mean whether it has been used or not. No money has been lost. We will ensure that there's a serious audit into this. No money has been lost.
It is a matter of tumetenga. Hatujatumia. Tumetenga.
And those are lies as we know them. Those are lies as we saw them.
Okay. So you were asking about Kariobangi.
Yes.
An informal settlement called Kiambea, which was demolished yesterday, early morning yesterday. That the land belongs to the government of Kenya, but then people were given 24-hour notice to vacate the land. So the bulldozers, it had got a name when it was demolished. Sani, that one. Yeah. And we could see it ripping through houses. I think we covered this on KTN News yesterday.
Yeah.
It demolished, and so people were left homeless and stranded.
People were left homeless at this point. At this time when there's rains, there's curfew,
you cannot move out of Nairobi.
Yep.
What do you do? Where do you go?
You're basically just left homeless. Where did the people come from? How long have they been there?
So I'm trying to retrieve that.
Because what was established is that is land that belongs to the Nairobi Water and Sewerage, company. Actually, just the board, where it is a sewer treatment plant for Nairobi for CBD. So all Nairobi's CBD sewage goes into that facility. That's where it's treated, and then it's sent down to Ruai, the main sewerage facility. So this is where it happened, where there's actually a sewer treatment facility, and then people had come and settled there, and there was an informal settlement, and it appears that the management of the facility is the one that was evicting the people because it wanted to put the facility into use. Looking into the merits and demerits of this, there's a lot to be argued on. Was it necessary for it to be done at this point? Why do you have to do it this way? And also the other question is, who are these people who came here? How long have they been there? Did they know that they are living in somebody else's property? How many notices do you need to be given for you to vacate a premise that is not yours? Really, if you've gone and occupied a piece of land.
I think here it is not about whether they were there illegally as squatters or they need to go. I think it's just the timing. Like, everyone is struggling everywhere. You need to be humane. You need to have some consideration for people and their struggles and, what they are going through now. I think it's more about the timing. And then secondly, is government priority really to put up a sewerage service now at that place?
What do you mean now? It's not being put up now. It's always been there. No, it's being expanded now.
But is it like in your priority
in your list of priorities?
Where is it?
Many things.
Is it
that
at the top?
Needs to do right now. It's at the top.
Late last year, was it early this year? There was an entire series being done by The Nation, and also KTN picked up on that story, on how we are contaminating water. Yeah. The day before yesterday, the CS for Environment actually stood up and said, you know what, we should take the director of NEMA to court. Why? Because NEMA is sitting back and watching as the waters of Nairobi are being contaminated. All right? Who is NEMA going after? The NEMA will go after the person who's contaminating the water. Who's contaminating this water? The person who's been put in charge of managing sewer. So if the person who's put in charge of managing sewer does his job of managing sewer, the person who does housing and other social issues should do their job. If my job is to manage the sewer, I will do my job of managing the sewer.
You see, now this is where...
Now, do I start sitting back and saying, okay, now I cannot do this sewer, you see, because there are people here. We'll be hanging that person by the neck.
But you see, this is where things are supposed to be done. Do I call it collectively? But not singly in silos, where somebody or sewerage just looks at sewerage, then housing just looks at housing. Like, for example, you find somebody has put up a house. After putting up a house, they realize, what do I do with the plumbing? You're supposed to have thought it through and through.
From the very beginning.
From the very beginning, from top to bottom, A to Z. Now, if you talk about contaminating water, I look at the people at Rwai or at that place as people down the stream. If you are actually talking about decontaminating water in Nairobi, you have to start upstream and work downwards, because if you clear downstream and you haven't sorted out upstream, what are you doing? Zero. 2, our contaminated water is not just about the open water sources, for example, or the underground where things may seep in, but you're also looking at our infrastructure, how we've done our piping, how we've constructed our houses. Because you find a house will be built, or a road or something will be structured somewhere where there is, these pipes, water pipes and whatnot.
You see, this is the thing.
So it's bigger than just going downstream and evicting a certain group of people without having sorted out the whole system.
So you should first of all go and evict the ones upstream, and then you come and evict the ones downstream. Look, Mercy,
I have a
people
plan.
have occupied land everywhere, all right? Here is one major facility that is sorting out your sewer. It's just like what we saw when the Ministry of Water went to the Rwai sewer treatment plant. They were talking about, so we need to expand Nairobi's capacity to handle sewage. Right? Now, because we need to do this, we're coming and finding that our land has been encroached upon. So what do? We first of all reclaim the land, and then we go into the project. So if the issue here is looking at this sewer treatment facility and seeing that this is work that needs to be done, and maybe it's not even beginning the work now. We've begun the work a couple of years back. There's a contractor who's been on the ground. The contractor is now coming to the final point and saying, I need to switch on the machines. If I switch on the machines, what means is that this sludge is going to be spewed all over this place. And the people who have come and occupy this land will be affected. Now, there's a catch-22, of course, on looking at the people and their human and what their needs are at the moment, and also looking at, I started work.
Okay, let's say that's supposed to happen. Is there another way of relocating or moving those people then? If you must do it now, if it's at the top of your list of priorities, is there another way of doing it?
There could be. Is that my job?
You see, now this is what we're saying.
This is why look,
You
this is
do-
Mercy, I think you started this off by saying this thing needs to be, this thing
You
needs
look
to
at
be
it
collectively,
Is there
Yes.
any-
holistically.
is there-
At this
Holistically.
point, you're not asking
Is there
questions about
any
how
arm of government that provides housing for people?
the people who
No
got
arm
there,
of
the
government
people who
provides
got
housing.
there. No, I will say here, because I do not know who or where, but it is clear that somebody gave these individuals the authority or to go and build there.
Watched as they built.
As they built
As they
and
built.
lived and continued thriving, somebody who was in a position of power saw, oh, okay, these fellows have come here and they've set up their shanty living. Okay, they've lived here, they're thriving, they're living. Okay, no problem. Nobody moved them. You can't tell me that when they were building those houses or those settlements, that nobody knew that this land was going to be used for the sewage system. You can't tell me that nobody knew. Somebody knew. Somebody kept quiet about it.
Somebody saw it.
Somebody saw it happening.
I think it's
so
a
at this
politics
point,
of
now,
encroachment.
even when you're giving them the order, because we know for a fact that they gave them a warning.
24
And they
hours.
said 24. There you,
24 hours. Where are you
Well,
going in
did they give
24
them
hours?
24 hours before that?
They must have received
Did Let's
a warning
assume,
even before
let's
that.
assume that they gave them.
Yes,
Let's
let's
assume
let's
that they
assume
gave
it's
them
24-hour notice.
3 months ago. Let's even say December last year.
There's
They
no
told
way.
them
There's
that
no
we are
way.
coming to
This,
move.
the story
These
here
people
is
have a lawyer. These people have gone to court.
they have the
the
case
time-
was to
Somebody
be had.
gave them the
but
right
the-
to
the
move.
case
there.
was to be
By
had
the time
on
they were going
7th.
to court, it's because they were aware of a notice to vacate
No, the case actually was to be had on 7th.
of May,
Yes, which is
day after tomorrow.
exactly. But the demolition still
All right.
happened.
So it means that they had received some prior warning before yesterday. 24 hours is not enough for you to come together, get a lawyer, a senior lawyer, go to court, get a court order. It means that they knew they had been given prior warning. I think what this brings about is the politics of encroachment of land, especially of public land. And we see this all the time. Politicians, some people with some political connections, use people to come and encroach a certain area so that they can end up owning that piece of land. We see that with East Africa Portland Cement. There are vast pieces of land in Athi River. Every time they keep putting up, those caveats saying this land belongs to EAPCC, this is Portland land, do not occupy here. How many squatters do we have on that land? Many. And all of them brought in there through political patronage. So what do? Do you start saying, no, now these people have come and they live here and they have need, they need to have a home, and because I don't have any other place I can take them, I cannot evict them from here? No, that's not my job.
No, and this is the thing. You have one person who wants to suddenly do their job, unfortunately, suddenly do their job without taking due process into consideration, right? Somebody wants to do their job and stand out and say, yeah, well, I needed to have this sewage issue sorted out. Whatever happens in the wake in terms of destruction, it's really not my concern. So long as I've done my job. You can't operate in a silo when you're dealing with so many people in the country. You can't do that. This is what we're saying, unfortunately. At the time that you're seeking the order to go and destroy or move or whatever, there were certain other things that should have been taken into consideration. Granted, these people are here. Is it unlawful or not? That one, we will not even deal with it now. But in this case, you've removed. So is the construction of the sewage happening today?
Has it started?
Today.
Yeah, it's complete.
They finished.
Yeah.
So they removed them yesterday. They're done today.
And they're done today. It's complete.
Yes, it's done. 18 minutes after 7. Let's take a look at the weather.
It's mostly cloudy in Nairobi at 17 degrees, 25 degrees the high, and lows of 16 today. We're going to see rain showers very early, even after the sun does dip. Nyeri at 17 degrees is mostly cloudy, highs of 23 with showers in the afternoon. 24 degrees and thunderstorms expected as a high in Nakuru. And in Eldoret, it's 14 degrees and partly cloudy. We'll see thunderstorms later with highs of 22 and lows of 13. In Kisumu, the showers are still coming down heavy. 27 degrees, the high. We're going to see showers well into the night. Malindi at 27 degrees. Rain showers expected to come back as they were already there this morning. Highs of 29 and lows of 26. It has started raining in Mombasa at 26 degrees. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 25. 20 degrees in Kampala and mostly cloudy. The rain will check in though. Highs of 26 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam at 25 degrees is mostly cloudy. Thunderstorms expected later with highs of 28 and lows of 24. Take a look then into Johannesburg when the sun has come up. 9 degrees and mostly clear conditions today with highs of 22 and lows of 8. And in Lagos for now, 27 degrees. Clear skies all through with highs of 34 and lows of 26.
So the Kariobangi water sewer treatment is run and managed by the Athi Waterworks Development Agency.
Spice up your life.
CEO of Athi Waterworks Development Agency.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up your...
Exactly what's happening on that land, right? We also know that the people who are affected had secured the services of Senior Counsel John Haminwa. They had gone to court. They had obtained a court order. This court order, had it been served on the agency or not, we do not know, but they can tell us that, and they can also go and take the case to court the day after tomorrow. What's the day after tomorrow? Thursday. Right? So Thursday is the day that they're supposed to go back to court and argue their case. These are people who have gone and built and put up shelters around this piece of land, and this piece of land is owned by the Athi Water Works Development Agency for the construction and expansion of this particular sewer facility. Now, let's go on the phone and speak to the CEO of the Athi Water Company, Engineer Thoita Mwangi. Good morning. The Athi Water and Water Works Development Agency. Good morning, Engineer.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. This is the Situation Room. In the room, you have me, Eric Latif, Nduoko and Dr. Mercy Korir.
Thank you, Ratif.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Now, let's begin with just give us a background of this particular facility in Kariobangi.
The Kariobangi sewage treatment plant is the oldest wastewater treatment plant in the city. I can tell you for sure that it was started in early 60s. And the second phase was completed in 1963. And actually, it is the facility that was treating the wastewater from the CPD. The Jogo Road corridor, the areas around the CBD, including Kagemi, some parts of E3. That's a facility that manages the wastewater from those regions.
So, since it was established, how many times has it been expanded? What's the capacity? Is it still able to hold the population that now resides around all these areas?
No. Actually, that is why the other facility, Atilwai, was started in mid-80s. This facility can only be able to treat about 32,000 cubic meters per day. And over time, that capacity has been reduced drastically to about 11,000 cubic meters per day, principally because of the human activities allowed in the wastewater treatment plant. We have had some squatters all encroaching into the facility, and critically affecting the operation of that facility. Allowed the year 2013, 2014, the government embarked on a mission to expand it as well, so that it could be restored to the original 2,000 cubic meters per day.
Okay.
And actually allocated 870 million to do exactly that. And among the work that was supposed to do was to repair and replace the broken down inlet electromechanical work, replace all the filter medias, repair electromechanical work on the circular clarifiers, the reticulation pump, and dislodging. Those are major activities that we plan to put the facility into life. And I can tell you now the work is complete. Actually, it was completed late last year, around November, December. But the commissioning of that facility is still pending because of the same issue of encroachment. The land itself was allocated by the then Nairobi County Council. It was supposed to be about 75 acres for that particular facility and for future expansion.
Engineer Mwangi, I must ask you, you talk about, commissioning not being able to take place because of the encroachment issue. Obviously, it's not something that started on Sunday. How long has it been that you've had a problem with the encroachment? The problem of encroachment for that land is not historical. Actually, it has been slightly about 5 years or thereabout. The encroachment to that facility started almost at the same time that the rehabilitation work started. And principally, that kind of encroachment, what is happening is that some people have come up and put up some shanties, some Mabati structures, and much of the population that is living there has rented. Actually, they have not owned the people; they have rented to those few people who have put up those Mabati structures.
Okay. So we've got some slumlords, so to speak. Those are the ones who encroached, and then now their tenants are the ones who are getting evicted.
Yes.
Engineer, was this the time to evict in the manner in which it happened? And two, could it have been done differently, considering that everyone is going through a hard time because of the pandemic?
Let me see this. This work started in 2013, 2014. The contractor has been placed, and as you may know, contractor staying in a contract site has penalties and repercussions for everything. So as much as possible, the government would also want to release the contractor, release him with the money. We would want also to commission that facility so that we pay him off. The government is running into we run into huge penalties due to delayed commissioning and release of the contractor from that site. And actually, it was not related. And let me also say this. This is not the only contract that is ongoing with those kind of repercussions. All contracts that are ongoing, that were started earlier, even before COVID, are still ongoing.
Yeah.
So I don't see the relationship between the ongoing contract and the COVID. So I don't know. I don't know. I may not be able to comment further about the relationship between that and COVID, but it's an ongoing contract that the government needs to complete.
Engineer, it's not so much about the contractor and COVID, but the eviction at a time when everyone is going through difficult financial times. Could it have been done at another time, or could it have been done differently?
Okay. As far as I know, the work that is ongoing there is doing the fence. Actually, to be able to delineate the area that belongs to the work and the other area. So it's once we do that fence, I don't think we are in any position chasing anybody away. We just continue with our work, doing the fence as it was designed and planned, and that's it. So by the time that we finish the farm, the fence, then these people will be able to look for alternative accommodation. Because as I say, these are tenants. So they can rent them somewhere else as long as we finish the fence. We are just going on with the work.
Okay, so I hear you saying that the work is going on. I mean, all these other things then are not taken into consideration, whether people lose their homes, whether they have to find an alternate source of accommodation, whether they have to sleep outside, whether their belongings have been strewn all over the place. That's not considered so long as the work goes on. That's what I'm hearing you say, engineer.
No. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that that, among other contracts, are ongoing in the city, and actually we consider everything. That is not the start of that project. Actually, it is the tail end. The fence has been done, much of it, more than 70% of the fence is done, and it is ongoing. And we have been working that way throughout. We talk to the people, and there has never been any outcry before.
So did they know that, because you say that they've been living there along the same timelines as the project itself, right?
Yes.
So did they know that by the time you come to commissioning, then you needed them to leave? Were they aware of this?
These people are aware of everything. We have had engagement with them, and I don't think I haven't seen the tenants themselves complaining. I've not had any outcry from them. They have their representation.
But their houses were down, their property was all over the place. They did not have anywhere to go. They don't need to voice their complaint. You just need to see the pictures. And
maybe what we can do, engineer, is let me ask it this way. So you're saying that you've had engagement with the people who've encroached onto this land since they started encroaching onto the land
5 years ago.
Yes.
And throughout the project, you've had engagement with them, and to the best of your understanding, they knew that they needed to vacate this particular premise.
Yes.
What was the feedback? What was their feedback to you? What were they saying? Were they asking for time? Were they saying that we don't understand what you're saying, or were they even saying we are not going to move?
I would want to state this, and maybe for clarity.
Yeah.
That the people that you see there are the tenants.
Yes.
So the tenant is a tenant. You tell him, the tenants today, the person that I engaged with last year is not the person.
It's not the same tenant. Have you engaged at all with the person who
was
encroached?
It's a continuous engagement. It's a continuous engagement. It's a continuous thing, and so on and so forth. But let me say this, because as I said, we have done 70% of that fence. We have never had complaint from the affected person.
Have you been demolishing the homes as you did the 70%? Are there other structures
Yes,
that came down?
Of course, the structures have been coming down. The ones that are along the fence, along where we are doing the structures, have been coming down.
So why do you suppose they raise an issue now with the remaining 30%?
That's a situation that I'm not able to explain now. I don't think maybe somebody is just taking advantage of the situation in the country to maybe to raise an alarm.
Right.
Otherwise, even the people around Kariobangi, around Huruma, who use that facility, were very happy about that facility being rehabilitated. Otherwise, the situation that you see polluting the river would not be addressed if the wastewater management aspect is not done.
Engineer, if you were to evict the people there or you were to move them out, what would you do?
I don't know. I don't know what to evict. Actually, we are not evicting anybody. We have no mandate to evict anybody. My mandate is that just to rehabilitate that facility, fence it off.
Okay, so who was responsible for this destruction that took place yesterday?
I can tell you for sure, I have not myself or any of my agents evicted anybody.
But I think I'm very interested in knowing then what we saw yesterday.
It was the construction of a wall.
It was the
There's the construction of a wall, and then you're constructing a wall. You find a structure on the way. You pull down the structure.
Is that what you're saying, engineer? That
it's a difference in language. When you say evict, you mean something different.
all right, the destruction of homes that took place yesterday, or settlements, or whatever you want to call them, as a result of this wall being erected. Who then gave the order for this to happen? Still in line with your work?
Let me say this. We have been doing that one for the last 5 years. We have never had any complaint.
It's something that you've been doing throughout the project.
We have done it. We have had the support of even the representation of that team. They are very happy with the facility. I don't know why it is being raised.
So
the
maybe
I'll find out, because it's only Latif who called me yesterday night. I was not aware about any complaint happening. Maybe I'll find out later and be able to actually now be reading from your same script. I asked Latif whether he himself has visited that script. He told me no.
I haven't visited the place.
I also need to visit it now so that we can be able to discuss that. After now, you raised that one yesterday night.
Right. Engineer, just give us an understanding of why this work was important. So you've said that the expansion needed to happen in order to stop polluting the river. Explain that.
Yeah, what I'm saying, and I think I'm going to repeat it very well, is that the Nairobi CBD and the surrounding areas, the Dara area, all those areas around the CBD, the Jogoo Road corridor, the areas in Huruma, not Jogoo Road, sorry, the Juja Road corridor, that is East 3 and Huruma and all that. That is the only place that the wastewater is treated. And that's why it was very, very important to rehabilitate it once it failed, and also to expand it, because as I say, it had reduced the capacity from 2,000 cubic meters to 11,000 cubic meters. Now, when that one happened, and the trunks are going there, that water spills over to Nairobi River, principally the Madare River. And,
so basically what you're saying is what has been happening is that raw sewage spills over into the Madare River.
Yes. Raw sewage. And actually, it was, you remember it was carried sometimes last year with the nation media. That was very, very bad. And actually, if you see the statement that the ministry did was that everything is being done to be able to restore the rivers in Nairobi in their normal states. And this is the only way. We manage the wastewater, we manage the trunk sewers, we manage the lateral sewers, and we manage the wastewater treatment.
Yeah.
So that is one of the activities that is being done.
Okay, engineer, can we imagine then for a moment that there is no outcry, there's no turmoil in the cases of these people who've lost their homes? Now let's look at the work that you talk about. So can you then say unequivocally that we're not going to see the problems with waste entering into the rivers, and we're going to have clean sources of water moving forward?
Sure. We cannot be able to do that one instantaneously. But I can tell you for sure that the government has a lot of plans to manage the wastewater. That is one of them. We also have an investment of about 20 billion now to be able to connect the homesteads that are not connected. And in the next 5-10 years, we're going to 100% manage the wastewater in the city.
Engineer Kariobangi, Chief Executive Officer of the Earthy Waterworks Development Agency, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you, Rati.
And we'll be
Thank
getting
you.
back in touch with you once you have, gotten in touch with the people on the ground to establish why we are having complaints now about eviction. If you're saying that we haven't had the complaints before, and also the fate of the people who had encroached there, as you call them, and the facility itself, the completion and the commissioning of this particular project.
Thank you. Welcome.
Asante sana. Have a good day.
All right. Yep.
22 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a look at traffic shortly.
All right, let's look at highways now and see what the roads are looking like. A little bit of traffic right around Mombasa Road, and that's still the situation as we see it. Hasn't changed much, but we see that will take us down towards General Motors. But then after that, all smooth, all clear to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. Okay, coming off of Thika Road, getting into the CBD, right around Globe Cinema roundabout, usual suspects where there is a bit of traffic there. One thing being asked to remember, use your masks. Guys, protecting yourself and others. All right. There's an exercise of cutting down trees that's happening along Mombasa Road. That is affecting traffic this morning. I would have thought that could be done at a different time, but all right. Such is the case of how we see things. Spice of MKE. Let us know what you see, and we'll keep people moving this morning. Traffic isn't so bad, but where you see it is, do let us know, and we'll spread the word.
Minutes to 8 o'clock. This is the Situation. So you've heard from Engineer Kariobangi. He says, well, this is a project that has been ongoing in terms of building the wall. This has been happening. The people who have encroached into this particular facility are people who are speculators and people who come put up structures and then they rent them out. It's a source of revenue. We see this issue everywhere in this city, especially the Nairobi metropolitan region. I gave you the example of the Portland cement and their land. People come there and they encroach, and then they start claiming that they bought this land legally, and because they are like the third or fourth generation buyer, then you're left with somebody telling you, look, this is Portland land. I did not know, I did not see, and the person who was orchestrating all this has taken off with the money.
I think here, Eric, what we are looking at, or what the discussion is, could it have been done at a different time? One, or two, could it have been done differently?
At what different time do you think it could have been done?
After we are through what I call the emergency phase of the coronavirus, or if you must finish so that you release the contractor, give people time to move out. As you say, they are tenants, they can actually vacate. Give people a month's time to organize themselves and move. And people will move.
Mercy, whenever you see evictions happening, when Wayaki Way is now being expanded, right? The road going to Nakuru, you have seen evictions happening there. Construction starts on one end, and up to the last minute, people are left with their belongings outside. Have they been told that you need to vacate? They have been told that they need to vacate. until the last minute, they do not vacate. Now, the tractors, bulldozers come and they demolish the houses. And that's when we see this all the time.
I think we need to be
when
humane.
Thika Road was being
regardless.
constructed, we saw it happening. When we had the Nairobi Rehabilitation Progress project last year, when buildings were being brought down, we saw this happen. Even not just the low-income tenants, we saw it happening with big tenants or big companies that are caught up in it. You have been told, look, you need to vacate this building. They don't vacate until the last minute when the bulldozer is there and goods are destroyed.
Could it be
There
that
is no
because
right
there's a
time at all anywhere?
could it
in
be
this
that
thing?
because there's a court process and they think the court process will be in their favor in a way? Because you see, again, we are not operating in a vacuum. We are a country of laws.
Yeah.
So, if, for example, there's a court process that I'm following and you want me to vacate, and I know I have a hearing on Thursday, and I know there's a court process,
Yep.
I may not be in a hurry to move because I know the law is, I'm covered by the law.
I know you're going to start using the court process just to corrupt the process, not to corrupt the courts, to corrupt the process to ensure that you keep earning a living from these particular houses. Because these are not the tenants who are going to court. This is the slumlords who are going to court. The people who have actually encroached and put up the houses are the ones who go to court.
Fair enough. But
And
here,
the ones who take advantage of this lengthy process to make sure that nothing happens, no demolition happens, they are not evicted from this particular property forever, knowing in the fullness of time
so
they have no grounds on which to sit in this land.
here we have two sets of people:
Mm.
the slumlords that you're talking about and the tenants.
Yes.
So if the slumlords are in court because that's their property, those are their shanties they put up, why can the tenants be given time to move out? Because as you say, as engineer said, tenants can move out. I mean, you do not have any attachment to that particular property.
Yeah.
Why can't they then have been moved out?
How would you do that?
Something, give people time.
How would you do that?
Give people time. Give ultimatums or whatever it is that by a certain period of time you need to have moved out.
Mm.
Don't listen to your landlord.
I hear you and everything
things
that
like
you're
that.
saying, Mercy. I hear you and everything that you're saying. But this is tried over and over and over again. It does not work. People are given time to move out. You're given 30 days, 60 days, 90 days to move out. On the final day when the building is being brought down, they're saying,
I'm still strapping the kid on my back.
Hatukupewa
I'm on
notice.
one hand.
Hatukupewa notice. That is always the word, hatukupewa notice. And you're wondering, are you serious that this did not happen? The construction of this particular major highway, it's a big project. It's a visible project. It started on that end. You can see the bulldozers coming. You can see what's happening on the other side. And people are caught up and they say they did not know that they needed to move away. So how would you do it? Because we actually need to get to that point where yes, in the interest of people who, there are children who have slept outside. There are people who have not had a roof over their head last night. And this is a fact. There are people who are suffering. There are people who did not know, okay, so even if I moved, where would I get a new home? Even if I moved today, would I be able to afford? Would I moving means deposit, all those things. The cost of moving is not cheap. It's true. All those things that we are saying, it's true. How do we address that going forward? Should we, be saying that the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection has an arm to come and look at such matters, address such issues? Because something needs to happen.
Maybe the PS of Social Protection should start talking to us so that we start finding out what exactly they do anyway.
What is social protection apart from giving old people money?
Exactly.
To take care of cases
Yeah.
like this. Because
yeah.
however you want to look at it,
There's a whole state
it's not
department.
justifiable to put people out
It's not.
in the cold. It's not justifiable to ruin people's little livelihoods that they have left. And look, it's happened before, like you said, but we're looking at dealing in extraordinary times right now, and with what we've seen and what we've done, people don't have an option. We said, okay, they can go look for another accommodation, but these are same people who we talked about the socially vulnerable right now, and these are them who normally depend on a daily wage to be able to eat, and we're literally talking about to be able to eat that day. And a lot of these people have been affected by COVID. And I think we cannot divorce the two. We cannot divorce COVID and the conditions that we see going on right now.
It's difficult.
So could there have been a different approach? Absolutely. We hear that even this now cleaning up of the river is going to take another 5 to 10 years. Would 2 weeks...
Of all rivers, not just this particular project.
No, of all rivers in the country, right? 5 to 10 years. So would 2 weeks have
made a
dented
difference?
this timeline?
Could
to
2
give
weeks have
people
yielded results? That's
don't
the other side of the argument.
But that's why I asked the
Because
question, and I said, so now we
probably
see...
we are at the end of a 2 weeks period.
With what you've completed so far and what happened yesterday, would it have made an overwhelming difference if these people were told, this is the thing here? What do they call that thing?
Son.
Yeah.
It
It's here.
is the bulldozer.
It's coming tomorrow. We're giving you guys 2 weeks to move.
Or even 24 hours.
Or even 24
48 hours.
But the nature of how this thing has been done gives that whole attitude of what we really don't care. We need to continue with our work.
There's a possibility that what you saw yesterday was the end of a 2 weeks.
There's a possibility that it wasn't.
Because we've seen these things happen before. Ngong Road just the other day when they were demolishing houses to connect between the new bypass cutting through Kibra into Langata Road, we saw the same thing happening. Houses were demolished. What were people saying? We did not have notice. Are you telling me that all these projects happen and people do not know that they're supposed to vacate this particular place?
I'm sure there are reasons that people are going
and
to...
I'm not being facetious, or
I'm
I'm
sure
not just being
I'm
inhuman. I'm just raising an issue.
But
Because the
I'm
fact
forever
of the
going
matter
to be...
is
I'm forever going to be on
demolitions
this. I'm forever going to be on the side of the people who sleep outside. On the side of the people whose children didn't have something to eat yesterday because their parents could not go.
Yep.
Monday morning, you wake up in the morning whereby things are already
6 a.m.
difficult. 6 a.m. Things are already terrible, already at knee status, right? And then they have to... it's not about picking up and starting. There's no... even if they were to find a home, there's no money to pay for it.
Yep.
I will forever be on the side of those people. I will.
Right.
Because in this case, what are they supposed to do?
So
whereas maybe if you had given them even 2 days, maybe they could have gone to squat with someone,
in those, let's even say that they're given 2 weeks. In those 2 weeks, if they don't move, because I'm sure people have been given 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, and they haven't moved. In those 2 weeks, if you're the one in charge of a project and you've given them 2 weeks and you've told them, you know what, guys, I need to construct this thing because for future, for expansion, for other economic and social factors, this needs to happen. I need you guys to move in the next 2 months. You come in the 2 months is 60 days. You come on the 56th day and you still find nothing has happened. What do? You add them another 2 weeks?
I don't know. This would be one of the times where I can honestly say that I don't know. But on the ugly side of it, I cannot reconcile with getting rid of people's livelihood. I can't. There's nothing you'll say to me that I'll say, actually, you know what, then it's justifiable. I really can't.
And you can imagine the children don't understand why they're sleeping out in the cold.
No.
They will not for now.
They'll be just traumatized. And
let's
this
go to the
reminds
phone
me
lines.
of okay, just one sentence. This reminds me of the people who've been affected by the floods. One moment you had a house,
And
the
then
next
it's
you are
gone.
looking for a boat.
Yeah.
Very, very unfortunate. Trevor in Kisumu, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
We're
Good
fine,
morning.
thank you.
I'd just like to chime in on the topic you're talking about right now.
Yes.
First of all, I really empathize with the guys who are evicted from the Kariobangi seawall plant. But having experience in the construction industry, the thing is this. Before, let's say, you demolish even someone's property, like the good engineer said, the project has been ongoing for the past 5 years. And the fence was 70% done before they reached the point where they need to demolish someone's structures. Wherever the fence is going to be put, there's something called setting out. You set out so everybody knows this is a clearly demarcated area. The fence is going to pass through this point. It's like walking through the exit and you find a building written X NCA, means you're encroaching on the road. So 10 months, 50 years before even the fence reaches that point, you already know this is not supposed to be habited. And you can see the fence is coming. With each passing day, it is coming closer to you. But now, like you said, the slumlords, because they are lords of impunity, they can all just tell the tenants, just linger. We know what to do. We'll go to court and do this and this. Why is the same situation? Why did the same situation not happen in, say, Red Hill, when the Red Hill Road was being constructed? Guys went to court. They got paid their billions, and they said, fine, demolish what you need to demolish, and you can just build your road. And they went on. But where there are so many informal settlements, that's where you find these problems coming up every other day, because it is easy to take a group of people who are feeling frustrated with the system and force them to, not coerce them to use their frustrations to come and frustrate somebody else who is doing something totally unrelated to what they're going through.
Trevor, if you think about the plight of the people, so you said you empathize with them.
Yeah.
But is there another way, a better way of doing this so that you ensure that the innocent people do not suffer?
Well, the better way was already done. When I was doing my setting out, you saw a red mark coming through. Somebody drew a red mark across your house. So definitely you knew. It's like you're seeing a car coming on the road, and you do not want to cross or jump to the other side. You're saying, this guy is going to stop. This guy sees me, he's going to stop. Like the engineer said. Yeah, the engineer said, there's nothing a contractor loves like interest on delayed payments. So every other time you tell them, let us wait because of, let's say there's COVID and all that, fine. We will wait, we'll give you this much time. The contractor does not really, it's force majeure comes to play, but there are other things that the contractor can still go around and make sure they get paid for that time wastage. And it's usually a really heavy amount. So every time that point reaches, and then maybe you're told, okay, fine, because this is an extraordinary situation, we are not going to pay you. So the contractor will say, you know what, let me just demolish and go ahead. After all, I already told you weeks in advance, months in advance, that I'm coming to pass through this point.
Okay. Thank you very much, Trevor.
Okay.
Have a good day in Kisumu.
You too.
0719-012-600. Chime in the conversation. Good morning.
Awesome.
There's also the unfortunate bit of the people who are elected to be representatives of the people. All right. These are members of parliament, members of county assembly, that's ward reps. They have a role to play here, especially on the welfare of people. When people are being evicted, or even when people are occupying a piece of land and there's an ongoing project, what role do these leaders have in coming to create awareness and trench awareness on the fact that, all right, something needs to happen here, people need to move, campaigning for them to get alternative resettlement? That's the role of the leaders.
I would say yes, absolutely. I think they do have a role to play here where that is concerned, because unfortunately you'll find that, truth be told, if there's any kind of agitation and you find that people have decided to stay put, you'll find that that agitation comes around the time of an election, for example. And you find, okay, you'll stay put Don't go anywhere.
Mtu asiwatoe hapa.
Don't let anybody remove you from here.
Maskini lazima
That then
tutawatetea.
cements my vote for the next run around the park, because that means I will be in. You get elected, then you forget about those people, and you see, like, now they've been evicted. Their houses have been demolished.
Yep.
Where are the leaders?
This is a vulnerable group of people.
Where are the leaders?
And their leaders who actually are supposed even to just take care of the marginalized in the community.
If we were to dig a little bit deeper, you'll find that there are local leaders who are very well aware of what's going on there, and had a position, had a space to speak about this, and probably spoke about it to these people and said, "It's okay, you may stay where you are." But then at the point now where they've been thrown out, you'll find that the silence is deafening.
Tutaenda huko bunge, tutawatetea. Steve calling in from Nairobi. Good morning.
Hello, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
Fine. I just want to make a contribution. My simple contribution is that we need to get to a point whereby when we are told something, we adhere to it. Because the evictions are as a result of somebody somewhere refusing to adhere to the law just because probably they think they can run to court and drag this whole process, because that basically is what happens. So in this case, if we are empathizing with those who have been evicted, we need to look at it this way. What happens if probably what needs to be constructed or the sewer is for a greater purpose for the general public, or who gets to benefit, because it is just like this the pandemic that we are in right now. And if you go back to when the curfew was being enforced, somebody somewhere must have thought and said, "Hey, these Kenyans, if we do not beat them, they will not realize that it's that bad." So we are actually in a point whereby if something is not done, because I would say it's not only the people at the top that have a problem, it's also the people at the bottom. Because you'd realize, if you ask yourself, look at this, hookers are on the side.
Oh, we've lost him. Steve, maybe you can call back and just contribute to today's conversation as you're coming to the top of the hour. This is what we've been discussing, the demolition, not just using this as the main case in point of what happened yesterday at Kariobangi sewer treatment plant. People, tens of people were left homeless, and the CEO of the Earthy Water company is telling us, or the agency is telling us, these people knew that they were supposed to move. This is a project that started 5 years ago. Just when the project started is when the people started encroaching this particular land. This piece of land was earmarked for this particular project in the 60s. It has not been occupied by squatters until 5 years ago. So what happens? Well, coming up to the top of the hour, today's proverb: ears that do not listen to advice accompany the head when it is chopped off. Ears that do not listen to advice accompany the head when it's being chopped off. Is there a better way of doing it? Can you chop off the head, after COVID-19?
I actually like this proverb.
Me too. I really like it.
Good morning.
This one is a good one.
It's 8 o'clock.
This morning, an accident already at Kahawa West outbound. Drive carefully if you're approaching the area, because it's right smack dab in the middle of the road, and so cars are having to divert. It's not so bad, but it's going to slow you down either way. All right, getting then onto into the city from Mombasa Road, it's not too bad either. We're looking at slower traffic, but last night we saw some epic traffic on Mombasa Road. We're hoping that doesn't repeat itself today. Where are you people going? Okay, Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. I'm going to give you later on a little bit of what's going on major roads around the country in a follow-up to what we did earlier, so that you know what to avoid and plan your journeys differently. Spice FM KE, reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan
2
by
minutes
choice,
after 8.
communications
This is the
expert,
situation in the room this morning. We also have in the morning this room.
In the morning.
We also have Dr. Mercy Korir. She is our guest host for the season. C.T. Muga is away for the week. When we started this conversation about COVID, Dr. Mercy, remember there's something that you liked bringing out. COVID has exposed our government. COVID has exposed lopsided development. COVID has exposed the lack of focus on what really matters for the people. And now we have a healthcare system that is basically staring at the risk of just being overrun by 100 cases.
Mm-hmm. As I said, the government does not know how, or rather people in government do not know how to serve people. They do not know how to attend to people's needs. And that is what COVID has exposed. That at the end of everything else, these roads you are constructing, the sewerage where you're doing everything, it's for people. So you have to always have the interest of the people at heart first. Everything about the person, so that now whatever else you're doing serves the interest of the people. So that's basically what we are seeing from COVID.
Holistically.
How else do you explain, for example, very simply, the mandatory government quarantine and isolation at your own cost? Like, it's a pandemic. People have job cuts. People have lost jobs. People didn't have money anyway in the first place. And then here they get a disease, and for lack of a better word, that was imported here in the country. You've gotten it when you are going about your own construction business, for example. Then you get diagnosed, you're put in an isolation facility, and you're expected to pay.
You're told this is going to be at your own cost.
How? And then government is shocked that people are jumping fences and running away.
What do you expect them to
What do you expect people to do? I would also run away.
And when there's a complaint, the government says, okay, I'm going to review that. I'm going to...
I won't even let them catch me first.
Just wait. I'm going to see what I can do.
Or say Kenyans are indisciplined.
Yeah.
Like, really.
Yeah.
You see, in any curve, back to my statistics, there's the Gaussian curve, where you have the outliers on one end and the outliers. 90% of your people
they're all in the middle.
They're all in the middle. They'll comply. So you expect that there are those who will have no idea what you're doing, and then you'll expect that there are those who will know and they'll want to be clever than you.
Yeah.
So those ones you don't bother with because you want your 90% to do it. So if you're not making policies to serve people, 90%, like what we were talking about yesterday, I would be much happier if I lock myself in a room in my house. Other than you lock me in KMTC Lenana and you charge me for it. I'll not come and be tested.
Yeah.
I will not.
And you're wondering why people are not volunteering themselves to be tested.
Why they're not coming out to be tested now.
So,
To talk about this the dangers of lopsided development that have been exposed by COVID-19 is our other guest host, Wanjiru Gekonyo, she of the Institute for Social Accountability. Good morning, Wanjiru.
Morning, Eric.
Good to hear from you. You sound upbeat, you sound healthy, you sound well. It's a good thing.
Yes, I am, and it's good to reconnect. Hi, Ndu, how are you doing?
Very well, Wajiro. Everything is all right.
Yes, and it's also good to hear Dr. Mercy.
Good morning, Wanjiro.
Yeah, and missing City. City is okay? He's in good health?
He will be fine.
He's fine, eh?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So, Wajiro, the COVID-19 basically has drained the swamp and left this particular alligator right out there in the open.
Yeah. I've heard the conversation. In fact, going back to the very interesting conversation you're having about the evictions.
Yes.
Around the Dandora switch.
Kariobangi.
Land reclamation. The Kariobangi.
Yes.
Yeah, land reclamation. this is really symptomatic of the issue, the underlying belly, this soft underlying belly of the COVID response. Namely that because of the inequality, the decisions that government has been making with regard to its investments, these factors have come together and created a situation that really is impossible to deal with unless you get to the foundational. And I think you were talking about that. We need a human rights-based approach, an approach that is people-centered, an approach that recognizes development is about people, it's for people, it has to be done with people. And this government doesn't get that. They have, the dictator's playbook where you're saying people don't know. They need to be guided, and you need to be benevolent, but hard, use a strong hand and strong arm. And this really is not going to help. And I think it's a big concern, and I think you've already talked about that. And what I'm encouraged about is that different forums, different sectors have come to the same realization. So, you'll be listening. I was on a World Bank meeting with various other civil society actors from different, there's very conservative civil society, there's more progressive, and there's radical. This was, a good array of conservative, fiscal analysts, economists, and the same issue came out across the board, human rights based. We've imported models that aren't working for us, and then when you link that with a very regressive political culture, we then see a COVID response that's really not speaking to what Kenyans need.
What do we have that's not working in the current COVID response? Look, we have been given a lot of freedom. We've been told, you're being urged every day, you're being encouraged to wash your hands and stay indoors, and you don't stay indoors. You're being urged every day to observe social distancing and physical distancing. You don't observe physical distancing. You saw the governor of Mombasa just the other day just getting frustrated, wondering, all right, so people, we have said this. I've even mobilized. I have said we're going to be able to provide for you meals that can sort you out for some period to come. And you are still not observing the measures.
Yeah, that is true. There's a real legitimacy crisis in the response. And I would say that stems from a couple of things. One is there is a culture there's a culture of mistrust, and this has to do with lack of political legitimacy of the regime and of political leadership. There's then a culture within Kenya which mirrors the very high level of impunity in political culture. So yes, we are a very disciplined nation in that regard, but that's got to do with our political culture. And I think a third thing would be that the way government engages with citizens is high-handed, and so it's expression of political might. So government pushes and citizens push back. Right. And I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they put it very well, because we are working around informal trade, and we are trying to work with government, which has its own dynamic, but trying to influence the government, the social protection measures, the economic cushion measures, to make sure they respond to the sector. And I was speaking to somebody who says there's an entire sector there that is used to operating without government. When you look at informal settlements, you look at informal trade, these people survive despite government. In fact, government is an intrusion. No, government is an intrusion, because all government does is regulate and set regulation, tax measures that impinge upon them. Government doesn't provide services. You look at these places, you don't have access to running water, sewerage, garbage collection. Residents of informal settlement, informal trade mainly do this for themselves. So they have some solutions that are very illegal. They have some that maybe are more acceptable, but they survive despite government. And every time government comes into their space, it's to evict them, it's to harass them, it's to, cajole. Yeah, well,
and to tax them.
To tax them.
Wanjiro, can I come in and ask you something here? Yesterday we had a
Yes.
conversation with the government spokesman, and I think he was at pains to kind of reconcile between why Kenyans would not do what they're told, basically. Can we connect the mistrust and probably to the point of distrust that Kenyans have of the government, and then why they refuse to do certain things? And this is across the board. We're not just talking about informal sector, right? Or from cutting across social strata.
Well, I think, obviously you'd have to do a proper study. But yes, on the face of it, our political leaders don't follow the law. I mean, the law in Kenya is a suggestion. Actually, you only follow it.
It's a proposal.
If you have no choice.
Yeah.
Proposal. It's an affirmative proposal that you evade if you're able. So yes, we have an ingrained culture of violating the law from the very, very, very top, and this is daily. So when government speaks, there's a lot of legitimacy is a very important thing, and legitimacy is built and cultivated. And this government has low legitimacy, and we talked about this, I think, the last time, rooted in the contentious election of 2017. Those results.
I saw you going 10 years back there.
Have to, because people don't exist in a vacuum.
Pet peeves.
I don't exist here today. When government speaks to me, I see them. There's a whole spectrum of issues that come to bear on that statement. So they are all part of the process. So one, legitimacy. The other thing is the manner. Our community systems have broken down. And really a response like this requires good community response. And in Nairobi particularly, unfortunately, the response has been caught up by this tussle over the power grab, as Eric, you like to call it, which is so apt. But unfortunately, the political tussle over these functions has completely immobilized the Nairobi response. So there is no Nairobi response.
It's a national response.
It's a national statement, but the enforcement has to be on the ground because people live on the ground.
Yeah.
It's about communities. It's about residents associations. It's about your local administration, your Nyumba Kumi, really saying this thing matters to us. So that system has broken down. So yes, government has done some things well, but there's then this deficit. And if they are to stand back and reflect, they will realize you can't force legitimacy.
The legitimacy question also, it's debatable. If we go to the county level, so you can say that the national government could be a legitimacy issue stemming from the contentious 2017 election. In some counties, there was no contention. Mombasa, for instance, there's no contention in terms of the county leadership. But we are seeing people questioning and people standing and pushing back at what their governor, whom they elected overwhelmingly, is telling them to do.
Yeah, now that's the other point. And I concede that we have a very low culture of compliance. But the other point that was being made is that if people don't perceive that solution as realistic to their reality, as useful to their reality, they will violate. And the issue is the balance between health and livelihood. So the question is, and this goes again around the evictions. If you look at eviction guidelines internationally, also in Kenyan law, there's strong emphasis on consultation. People have to understand this is why we are doing this and this is how it's going to be done. And then people need to be able to feedback and say, yes, but when you do that, how will we eat? How will you know? So there's a lot we don't know. There's factors that are political with regard to the failure of our local governance systems, because even county governments haven't taken time to build those up. But there's also the reality of what is the impact of the COVID lockdown and these measures that government has taken on livelihood.
Yeah.
Because if I perceive that measure, that curfew, is impinging upon my ability to take care of my family, that's a no-brainer.
You will flout it.
So there are things we don't know because the dialogue isn't happening. And you can only have dialogue at the local level. So the first thing, government took immediate measures and had to. It's a pandemic, no one was prepared. But very soon after, they should have instituted this dialogue. Now, we've been talking to informal trade associations, and we interviewed about 28 of them across the country. And the dialogue isn't happening. They don't know. Government isn't telling people this is what's going on.
They have no access to this information.
Access to information. They also don't believe that people have solutions.
Okay.
Because at the local level, I might be living in an informal settlement. I don't have running water. I've tapped illegal power. You know, that whole setup. But if there is a conversation about this disease, what do you want to do? I'll have a contribution in the solution.
Wanjiru, let's take a break. Let's take a break, take a look at weather, and then come back into this conversation. I'll take you on that, on whether we need to be involving people on everything and what the role of government is, therefore. 18 minutes after 8. Good morning.
It's mostly cloudy. The sun will disappear in most parts of the city. The rain starts very soon. Highs of 25 and lows of 16 in Nairobi. In Nyeri this morning at 18 degrees, it's mostly cloudy. That'll open up into an afternoon of showers. Highs of 23. Nakuru at 17 degrees, it's mostly cloudy. Showers come in there as well with highs of 24. Looking into Eldoret, where it's currently partly cloudy conditions at 15 degrees. Forecasted thunderstorms for the afternoon. Kisumu, the rains have stopped for now. We'll see mostly cloudy conditions and opening into an afternoon of rain that will take us well into the night. Taking a look then into Malindi, where it's 26 degrees and the showers continue, opening up to thunderstorms in the afternoon with highs of 29. The same goes for Mombasa, where it's cloudy conditions, intermittent rain, but then it will be a solid afternoon of downpours, highs of 29 and lows of 25. 21 degrees in Kampala this morning and thunderstorms predicted for later. In Dar es Salaam at 26 degrees, cloudy conditions for now. We'll see rain later with highs of 28 and lows of 24. And in Johannesburg, it's mostly sunny this morning at 9 degrees. It's a cool day though, with the bright skies, highs of 22 and lows of 8. And finally for now in Lagos at 26 degrees, clear skies all through, partly cloudy conditions in the afternoon with highs of 33 and lows of 26.
This is the situation, Kenya's biggest conversation in the room. Eric Dr. Marcy Career, and joining us on the line is Wanjiru Gikonyo.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
About
Spice up yourself.
COVID-19 is exposing of Lopsided.
Wanjiru, you talked about informal traders or people in informal settlements as a whole, and that our community systems are broken. That means they were there at some point before they got broken. And in all this, I'm wondering, where does the State Department for Social Protection come in, if at all it does, or how do you work with them? What is their role? What's their function in all of this? Because I think apart from the Ministry of Health, this should have been the other department that is very vocal, whose CS and PS is at the front line, side by side by the other CSs.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I must confess, I don't have an answer for that other than what we've evidenced in our work. This ministry has funds that are disbursed, and they have, they then disperse money to vulnerable populations, including the elderly and such. We haven't interacted with this particular ministry, but from our work in the national budget process, what we've noticed with government is that they set up funds which they perceive to be the solution to the problem they want, but that's not necessarily well grounded in a community system at the local level. This ministry disburses through the national government administration. So it would be the chiefs at the local level.
Yeah.
Constitutionally, public participation is a county function. So counties are then supposed to set up not community structures, actually public participation structures. They are the ones who are supposed to provide the framework. Where national government and county government are not liaising and coordinating, you then have very parallel structures at the local level, dishing out money, doing, budget processes and various things without intergovernmental coordination and without meaningful participation. So you have money being allocated, which is great, but it is participating the people, as opposed to really saying, so what does this sector need beyond the transfer? Because the elderly need many things. They need social support.
Yeah.
They need maybe access to certain amenities, which the county has. So my analysis of where the shortfall is one, this money is a little bit of a handout given by the administration to allow them to spend most of their money on large infrastructure projects while saying we have money that goes to vulnerable communities. Instead of dealing with the fundamental issues, these elderly people, are they able to access the level of health care they need? Are we making enough investments in health care? So my answer to why we are not seeing a good response from social services is because government doesn't really place a premium on this aspect of social services in terms of making sure that you report on how these funds have been used to improve the welfare and livelihood of those who are benefiting. So all they do is tick a box and say we've been able to transfer 1,500 to these many people, and they don't know whether you transfer that money to somebody who's critically ill. The family has had to sell their land to be able to
just maintain them and support them. And the government is very good at that, at ticking boxes.
In the ticking boxes and also working in silos. So the COVID response, we have seen that because the first thing we told them is vulnerability targeting, the households at the local level. You need to bring on board the county, because county also has a social services. County has community health services. County has the decentralized and public participation services. They need to work with the national government to identify who are these vulnerable, who need the support. But we really have, I keep saying it's a soft underbelly, but really it's an abdication of responsibility. And maybe we need to prioritize because, public participation, community engagement is treated as a secondary or...
It's just a by the way.
It's a by the way to governance.
Is it because...
COVID is teaching us that it is really the center. It's where governance begins.
If you look at community engagement and working on social structures, do you think or do you see it as if it's a difficult job for government? Because here the results are not tangible. You'll not say we have put up 2 structures or we've done A, B, C, and D. It will be either a healthy population, people are going about their other economic activities, you cannot really point a finger and say, like you've supplied a machine or something. Is it that it requires more work, more intellectual work even, as opposed to these other brick and mortar things?
No, in fact, in our analysis, because yes, we've also tried to reflect on this, it's about interests. Because our governments are not sufficiently responsive to citizens to feel they need to report to citizens, because they are able to buy their way through elections. So their primary motivation is the next election.
Yes.
So brick and mortar is tenders. And it is putting money in your pocket or in the pockets of those who will enable you to come back. So, it all comes back, by the way, to this political culture, the capture of the state, capture of government systems. It is one. So it is political interest, this political economy of corruption.
How does it change?
The second thing is ideological. So we have, we have a political culture that is based on, I don't know what philosophy we run on as Kenyans.
None.
Yeah, so we haven't really sat to say what defines us. And this is what BBI was pretending to do. But really, it's fundamental. We need to say, what are our values? What matters to us? So when we engage with government, you can see their eyes glaze over when you start talking about public participation, because public participation is difficult, building community structures is difficult, but then the benefits are exponential, because you then have ownership of government, of public projects. You then are able to tap community resources, so that development in the medium to long run becomes more effective, more sustainable.
That would be ideal, Wanjiru. That would be ideal, because for those of us who sometimes exist in the ideal, that would be what the case would be. But now we look at a situation where regime after regime, administration after administration, individuals who maybe would not be tainted still come into a new administration, but the systemic issues are still glaringly existent. How do we change? Because this conversation that we're having now, it's possible that we had it last year. It's possible that we had it the year before. It's possible we'll have it next year. For as long as this happens, we're going to continue having the conversation. If there's going to be a shift, what needs to happen?
It has to start from the people.
It's got to start
I would put it, I'd put it to you that we are not the only ones having this conversation. Look at what's happened in America. And, of course, they have a lot stronger kind of culture of democracy and people say. But look at government priority. Look at what happened in the UK, the oldest democracy, oldest democracy, can be argued. And look at the kind of decisions that government has been making.
This is what I'm saying, because it's a system that works, Wanjiru. This is actually the crux of my question, Wanjiru. Just hang on a minute. Because how then do we change it? If you look at the people sitting on this end and you see government, you've just said it now, that in other democracies where people agitate and it changes, a system is in place that works. How then do we translate that on this end of the pond, where we are seeing the problems that you've talked about just now? How does it change?
The point I was going to make, before we talk about change, we need to understand the problem. And the problem is we have the impact of global neo-liberal policy is also part of the philosophical kind of disconnect for us. So that not only do we have a broken political system, very broken electoral system, we are trying to build our constitutional architecture, and it's heavily contested and there's lots of interest. Not only do we have high corruption, linked to that, there's a global development philosophy that is, and there's analysis have been done. Who benefits from large infrastructure projects, because this is foreign funding that comes in at very high interest rates that then benefits businesses that are, in the West. But this money is made readily available to our government. And there are handouts and there are kickbacks to government operatives who then also benefit. So it's an elite capture, but it's not just local. So what do we do? Well, I think we need to recognize we have to work at those various levels. And this is like a big change agenda. And I would say what we are beginning to do, like in having this conversation, is the beginning of the change. And every time I hear on radio or I read an article from somebody who's maybe in the legal profession, medical profession, saying we can no longer have this top-down development, bricks and mortar as opposed to human development. That is the beginning of the change, because we need to radically transform how we do business. And this change is, what are our budget priorities? How do we hold our political leaders accountable? And for me, the other big thing is self-governance of the people. And this is really strengthening that local level structure. And I think it starts with a conversation, and it starts with the network.
I think it should start with the people, Wanjiru, because if it's only limited to people in government or people who have access to government, that elitist conversation, then it never translates down to government. And government is looking at where the majority are. I mean, as long as the majority are not putting up enough pressure, then nothing happens. As long as the people are not seeing the need to up the pressure, that as well will not happen. Let's take a break, take a look at traffic, and then continue this conversation. And we'll open up now the phone line 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600 2079.
Beyond the county right now, Viusenge Majimbo Osieki Road, that is in Western Kenya. We know that the Goye Causeway has been submerged. Now, that is a major link road between Nyanza and Nyanza County, as well, Nyanza area and Kisumu County. So now we know that causeway, Kenya has already sent out an alert today, and that means that you will not be able to use that link road, then now connecting towards Busia. The Kisan Bonda Usenge Osiebo exercise caution using that way, and these are for people who are on the highway between these counties. The highways now at certain places where the bridges used to exist have been washed away because of the rain. Between Ayewo and Kisi, that bridge also has been washed away, and but now there's construction going on that road, so you need to be careful. They're going to declare it open soon enough. If we're now looking at central Kenya, bridges in Imenti, central Chogoria, quite a lot of those have been washed away. So you might plan a trip and you find that the road doesn't exist, so you need to be careful whereby you're approaching those areas. We'll give you more information about some of those other places in a bit. Spice FM KE, if there's more information that you have that we can share, let us know.
You know, when you talk about lopsided development and what the government focuses on, and now we have a public health emergency, and all these things are being exposed. You know, what the government could have done, should have done, did not do. What's the status of our healthcare system? Not so good. What's the status of our social amenities? Like when you're talking about now taking care of the elderly, the vulnerable. The government does not really consider these things, you know, in a day-to-day running of government. were discussing the other day schools and the children with special needs that need to access education. They're at home. The government has not come to address their plight. So what are they doing while they're at home? Somebody who runs a school that's a special needs school was saying, look, what is happening in homes where we have these kids with special needs is dire. These people need a different program that addresses them. But you see, the government has how the government has been functioning or has been thinking or has been just doing its things before this is exposing all these things with COVID-19.
The people have never been at the heart of any plan or any project. Yeah.
Yep. It's always about the people themselves. I mean, the government thinking, like Wanjiru is saying,
it's about
brick
a few
and mortar projects.
Yes,
few
that
individuals.
will
for a
fight
few
on-
individuals at the top, at the creme. I don't want to call them the creme de la creme, but at the top
Top layer.
tier, it's about those ones. Then the rest of us who are at the bottom of the pyramid, we are a means to an end.
Yep.
We are the reason why there'll be a Chinese loan to do a certain construction. It's for the people.
Yep.
But is it what the people need? We will be the reason why we'll take a World Bank loan to give coffee farmers. Is that the priority? So it's about what these people up here need at the top of the pyramid, what their interests are, what is in it for them. Then the rest of you, if you get any breadcrumbs, then it's all right.
Good.
Yeah.
If
You will
not-
live. If you don't, others will come and fill in at the bottom of the pyramid, which is
there are many more that'll emerge.
which is a very sad state
Yeah.
of affairs.
But what's the role of the citizens? And that's why I think Ndu, you were asking, and Wajiro was responding to this. For how long shall we have this conversation? And
Yeah.
I keep saying, until the point when citizens are the ones who start owning the conversation, we still run the risk of electing people because you're looking at them as just people that we need to elect to participate in an election process. We get excited. It's our 5-year entertainment season. We get there, we get entertained because these people are coming, they're giving us money, they're calling us, they're insulting the other person, and you're contributing to this conversation, sitting in barazas and saying, did you hear what so-and-so called the other person?
Yep.
Wow, this is the person I'm going to vote for. And after they go they occupy those particular offices, then we start sitting back and throwing stones at them, but not owning this conversation.
Look at what is happening in our houses of parliament, be it Senate or the National Assembly, where we have committees. For the sake of committees, what we were saying in the morning, there are people we've elected. There are people who have been selected. Let's say you're in a committee for health, for trade, for energy, I don't know, finance. Then when you want to hold the other side of government accountable, your cabinet secretaries or anyone in the ministry, it is like just playing to the gallery. Even sometimes the quality of questions that are asked leaves you with a lot to desire. You wonder, this is our whole human being elected and given that position on my behalf. And I could ask better questions and demand better. And then after that whole public display of, holding people into account, nothing ever happens.
It's playing to the gallery. Like I was telling you, the rumors out there are always, when you see these questions being asked, when you see people being summoned to parliamentary committees, when you see reports being produced by parliamentary committees, oftentimes it has been sponsored, or oftentimes it's to achieve a certain end. When regulations are passed, and the regulation comes up with a few clauses here and there, there's somebody who's already seen the business end of it. Last week we were talking here with C.T. Muga, and he was asking a question on the budgeting process and the new tax amendment law that passed that makes it more expensive to produce medical supplies locally, makes it cheaper to import medical supplies at this particular point in time, despite all the lessons that we're learning from COVID-19.
And on top of that, one of your big 4 agendas is manufacturing.
Manufacturing.
Yet you're not incentivizing manufacturing. So what are we talking about? And so you've mentioned medical supplies, and we should have probably discussed that yesterday on the Standard. But there is certain medicine for hypertension that would cost you between 30 and 60 shillings a month for a full dose. And when you import, it's in its thousands. Doesn't it make more sense to beef up manufacturing? Because at the end of the day, your medicines will be cheaper. It means people can afford. And even when you say you want to provide universal health coverage, if a drug is costing you 30 for a month dose, as opposed to 1,000 for a month dose, it will be easier for you to even cover for this and have everyone access healthcare. And it's a win-win for the public because they'll get their medicine, and for the manufacturers. And remember, these manufacturers create employment.
Development
They pay taxes.
Development is a win-win for everyone. And I think by the time leaders understand that, if you actually do your job, right, that which you've been mandated to do, if you actually do it, you actually win. It looks good. It's good for everybody. It's good for you. It's good for the people. Development begets development. You get to climb up on that ladder. The people across board are sorted out. Wanjiru mentioned countries whereby democratic agitation has worked. It was not a snap of the fingers, but they got to realize that a robust lobbying system made sense. The lobbying in the United States is so strong. It's a business.
It's a business, yeah.
Let's not use that as an example.
That's not a good example.
But just for now, okay. For purposes
For now,
of this
let me use it for
conversation.
now. But if we start, when it was not a business, somebody saw that, what we can actually do is I can actually start to speak about the things that I see that are not working. And I round up the people around me, and we come together, and then we take it up a step, and then we go up. People have conversations in their living rooms, and you find yourself on the floor of Congress. This is what I'm talking about. And they say, hold on a minute. There's so many people talking about this thing. Hadn't we better pay some attention? And that's why I do agree with you that at some point, the people either have to get pissed off enough with the way things are happening to start to talk about it and agitate for some kind of change. Before that happens, we're just going to continue having this conversation.
No, I think
yes,
people
yes,
like...
Okay. Yeah, can I throw in, because we're looking at the COVID response, and I think one of the big gaps is there's a lot happening, around the boardrooms of government that's not being communicated to the public. So on one hand, it's good. Government is thinking about these things. The shutdown was partial, a recognition that really Kenya cannot afford to fully lock down because 80% of the population is in informal trade. They live almost all of them, hand to mouth. A large section is hand to mouth, which means the daily wage is really important. So there's good thinking happening in there. But the problem is government is not communicating. Government has also not, and because it's not communicating, it also hasn't opened itself up for consultation. We are now beginning to see some level of consultation because they've now set up subcommittees. We've seen, parliamentary committees also beginning to engage. So, we've had the opportunity to have some pretty robust conversations around how are you going to protect the majority of employed in the agricultural sector, in the wholesale retail sector, especially the informal trade, manufacturing as well. So there are robust conversations happening. But because government is having these conversations behind the scenes, we will put in our best submissions. Other actors will come in, put in the best submissions. And at the end of the day, the decision will be taken somewhere we cannot see.
The processing is done on a separate floor.
In fact, what we're hearing is that at the end of the day, the decision makers on where the money goes are seated in State House.
And they've already made their decisions.
It's not even the ministry, it's not Bunge. So when you have centralized decision making, it becomes very difficult because you will give your best submissions, but at the end of the day, then those decisions are taken by, unfortunately, then a small clique of mainly male, mainly male. You see one or two women being put into the, let's say, this COVID fund board. Actually, it's being chaired by a woman, to be fair. But mainly men, private sector, big business, you're like, what do they know about the majority who are, living on less than $2 a day, who do not have access to government services, who are in the they do not know. So the problem is that this government doesn't believe in people, and so the way it responded is very defensive. It's kind of like, we're going to find the money, we're going to put the money there. And Kwame Owino did an op-ed from the get-go, and he said, don't throw money at the problem. Yes, we need the money, but there's a bigger problem. There's bigger governance challenges in terms of the structures. How do you structure the response, let's say, to the informal sector? You want to cushion these businesses.
Yeah.
That some of which have been forced to wind up, others are operating off loans from Shylocks or eating into savings. Households are hungry. How do you target this so that you get past the cartels that operate in these sectors? And if you think you'll be able to craft that from the boardroom, then it's a joke. And this is why we're already beginning to see corruption rerouting itself.
Yeah.
Without access to information, public participation, transparency, inclusiveness in the response, even the best intentions of government will be swept aside or will be undermined by cartels.
By all these things that we are doing now. 13 minutes to 9 o'clock, the Situation Room. The conversation continues. You can join the conversation on 0719-012-600. Also, you can comment on our social media handles, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Good morning. At 10 to 9, I'd like to steer the conversation to something that I told you. So we're talking about citizen participation and citizen involvement, especially in dealing and responding to the COVID pandemic. Where people need to be brought on board, people need to be made to understand this is why we are doing this. Come on board with us, work with us so that we can fight this pandemic. Looking at that example and looking at the examples of other countries where government actually comes out and it's being resolute. So yes, this is what you are going to do, and this is what we as government are going to do to help you do what we want you to do. Uganda, Rwanda, just 2 cases. China, major case, right? China, cases of COVID-19 brought down. They are only reporting just a handful of cases from the number of cases that we saw. Rwanda and Uganda, we are saying Rwanda has less than 200 or just about 200, 0 deaths. Uganda, less than 100, 0 deaths. But you see, when government just comes out and does what it's supposed to do, this whole thing of bringing people on board on such an emergency may not be the best route.
Yeah, I think government made some very sound judgment calls from the outset, which was enforce this partial lockdown and such. Where I think they then lost the plot in terms of, you need to build ownership for this. But I think that the real there was a mixed communication over the past couple of weeks when you open up some sectors and then you extend the shutdown.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? I think they lost there. But yes, fundamentally, I think the weakness is that we are now facing is economic. And I think you were talking about this issue about taking this business approach to quarantine, where people are expected to pay. Big mistake. Not going for the house, let people quarantine in the house. That's common sense. Trust people to do this. This is when you say people can regulate their own behavior. So that was a mistake. Now they are actually going to or are facing imminent food security challenges. Because if you talk to people in informal trade, people in informal settlements, this is the biggest pressing issue, and government is aware. So they've crafted this social protection funds. I don't know whether they disbursed them. They're supposed to have been disbursed from mid last month. They've been struggling with targeting, but yes, the fundamental challenge is when you sit in a boardroom and you craft a solution, how well targeted is that solution going to be? And right now, we are possibly in the heart of the crisis because the livelihood crisis is the economic crisis is what is center stage. People maybe have struggled through April. Now it's May. People who lost their jobs, middle income people also, professional people laid off, our middle class really survives paycheck to paycheck, not hand to mouth, but paycheck to paycheck. So people, are then running out of supplies in the house. Where do you turn if you've been laid off? Or your employer has cut off half your salary and your landlord still needs to be paid. And it's worse still for businesses that are operating without capital. Traders are saying, look, we've eaten into our capital. Water access is still a challenge. So there are these basics that government needs to deal with very resolutely and needs to recognize that they have to work with the public. And, Eric, I think you are asking how realistic is that? The public come in there's very many ways to engage the public, and I was saying it before. Let there be information, let there be feedback channels, work through the mechanisms that exist. Avoid the temptation to create new structures. And when you look at this administration, and particularly the president is good has lots of good ideas, but has a history of not working within existing structures. We saw it with the economic stimulus program that came in, and it was crafted, very good idea, but then being implemented almost parallel to what already existed. We saw NYS, again, another, project, president, another pet project of the president. Great idea. But again, crafted in a boardroom somewhere and implemented outside of the existing framework and opening the floodgates for major corruption. And those projects did not take root. Unfortunately, we are seeing the same again with COVID, where structures exist, whether it's this social security funds, whether it's the county structures, resident association structures, community health structures.
No, we have a new one. We have a new Kazi kwa Vijana kind of project. Targeting 26,000. Yes. Oh yeah. It's actually going to roll out, and the president spoke about this. Yes. This is the
Kenya Youth Employment Program.
This one for COVID-19 for the National Hygiene Program that is going to be called Kazi Mtaani.
Right.
We're going to hire 26,000 Kenyans. We're going to get jobs and get it's a way for cash transfer.
5 million. Have they finished hiring the 5 million from last year?
No, 500,000 are going to lose jobs this year.
500,000 are going to lose jobs.
There's a whole issue of how many people,
Yeah.
This is basically a cash transfer program by the government, but we don't want to give you free cash. So we're going to engage youth in cleaning up, in the estates, and that's how they get money. Remember Kazi kwa Vijana? It was the same kind of idea.
Kind of thing.
Pesa kwa wazee.
In fact, that's a good point because I saw that proposal, and what came to mind was NYS was, pretty similar.
Yep.
And what the tragedy is when you craft these programs outside of the context is they have a very unhealthy impact. When we looked at NYS, because we had a bit of interaction with that, we went to the youth groups on the ground and asked them, so how's NYS been for you? And they say it's great. They pay us on time. So everyone wants to get onto the NYS program. But then they said the problem with NYS, though, is that we are trying to put together a business. And so when NYS comes up, the youth who are in the business dump the business, go to NYS, where they then get a contract of however many days.
Yeah.
And they're not then able to come back into the business we've been trying to build. So you disrupt.
Yeah.
So actually what they were saying is NYS is disrupting us. And last thing, when we looked at the NYS structure, because you're looking at how do you sustainably clean the environment, because we have a big problem of solid waste mismanagement, good policy but lack of implementation. NYS was very assistentialist, which means it's crafted from the top. It puts money in the pocket. You come and give your services. You don't think. Your job there is to give your labor. It is not to bring your ideas, your innovation, your creativity. Assistentialist.
Yeah.
So how would you rather do this? You would rather map out who are the businesses, who are the potential businesses, what's the support you need, create, already we've got all the youth funds and everything, create that mechanism. If you're getting into the environmental sector, look at what is the profile of businesses, how do we help them grow? For instance, at that point, youth were telling us, yes, they've been in this business, but they're earning very little. And these are the blockages, because there are some blockages that were in their place. And that's what they need dealt with. The point I'm making is this. the COVID response is needed urgently. So we need a cushion that will go and help those businesses that are struggling now.
Yeah.
Not creating schemes that are very futuristic, because households need money now.
It's for today.
Businesses need it now.
Yeah.
It's very good to then get into youth employment programs, but they need to work within existing structures and they need to be enabling. They cannot be assistentialist where government comes along as the savior of these people, because it's at the end of the day, funds are about political manipulation in Kenya. And, this was the question that Mercy was asking.
Wajiro, thank you very much for speaking to us. We're coming to the top of the hour.
Okay.
We've had a conversation for the hour, and Asante Sana for joining us.
You need to be giving me notice, really.
Clock in front of you next time. Thank you very much, Wajiro Gikonyo, for the Institute for Social Accountability. Have a good day.
All right. Okay. Clock in front of me. Have a good one.
Right. As we come to the top of the hour, today's proverb: ears that do not listen to advice accompany the head when it is chopped off. It's ears that do not listen to advice accompany the head when the day cometh. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock. In the next hour, let's talk about Kenya's response to COVID-19 and what we are doing, going back in the streets so soon.
All right, looking at Nairobi, we had an accident on Thika Road. And are you noticing traffic is back? Pangani, all the way into the city centre, is bumper to bumper, trying to get now past Thika Superhighway. Jogo Road is slow this morning, but it is moving. Mombasa Road as well, slow until you get to General Motors. After there, it then opens up. It seems that it's happening today as well. Either way, the curfew still stands, folks. So whatever it is that you're doing, make sure that by 7, you are in the house. Business between, let's shortly slightly out of Nairobi. Business between Matara and Gakoi temporarily interrupted after flash floods overflew the Karimumu Bridge in Gatundu North. So that doesn't exist. People coming out for business this morning, just know that that bridge does not exist, so you will not be able to access the main road. Okay, approach with caution or plan an alternative route for travels this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times.
This is also Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting in Nairobi 94.4. We are in Malindi 97.7, Nyeri 90.9, Eldoret 96.7, 96.0 in Nakuru, 102.5 Kisumu, and 87.9 in Mombasa. Broadcasting as well to the world on www.spicefm.co.ke. Also on our social media platforms, Facebook, Spice FM KE. We are live streaming on YouTube, Spice FM KE, and Twitter at Spice FM KE. So many vehicles on the road, so many people, pedestrians back on the streets of Nairobi, especially Nairobi, which a couple of weeks back, we had seen there was a basic reduction and cessation of movement.
Ghost town.
It was a ghost town.
Now, everybody is back. This morning I was coming, as I was driving into work at 5 a.m., all the way Wayaki Way, Uhuru Highway, the number of vehicles on the road was significantly more than we had seen earlier. The same thing that was happening, even the people, pedestrians at that time, at that early morning, up and about. What's happening?
I don't know what's going on, but Google Kenya instituted a survey whereby they're able to look at the numbers and see that 16% more, just in the city of Nairobi, people have come back into the streets. We saw a report on KTN yesterday at 7:30, not
PM.
7:30 p.m.
Yeah.
The bus stages are packed, and these are people waiting for matatus that don't exist. So then I have to ask the question, what was going on? Or has the psyche changed where people now think it's all right, where you can come back onto the streets, you don't have to leave at 5 o'clock, you don't have to be home by 7? People have now forgotten about all of this.
I don't think people have forgotten. I think we go back to the basics and we'll go to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where at the bottom of your pyramid are your basic needs: food, shelter, water. After a month of being indoors, restricted movement and whatnot, whatever reserves you had have already gone down. The job that you probably had before that time, you've either lost your job or you have a salary cut. There's something that has shifted. So you have to make sure your base of the pyramid is well taken care of. So what you're seeing is a normal response, in my opinion, where somebody is coming out.
They are living their lives.
Yeah, people are looking for food, literally. Like that is, you see, hunger, if you're hungry, you'll feel it now. You will feel the effects now. Compare with the coronavirus, where you know it is a threat, you've appreciated it's a threat, but it is not your immediate threat. You have an internal. You will venture out. You will venture out. And the Nairobian had an editorial about, and this one, Ted Malanda explained it. Back in the day, in the village, for everyone who grew up in the village like myself, if you are going home, then it starts raining, you would seek shelter first. And then, let's say you give it an hour, you know, this rain will die down and then you'll go. An hour later, it's still raining. 2 hours later, it is still raining, heavier, and then now it's dark. So at the end of the day, you know you must go home. And if you're a kid, you know if you do not go home, you know what you will get.
Yeah.
So you'll just brave the rain, because the rain beating you is better than the beating you will get at home. So here it's the same thing. People are looking at,
After all, it's just the rain.
yeah, it's if I'm hungry now, I'd rather sort that out.
Yeah.
You will not stand to see your children starving. You saw in the coast the lady who was boiling stones to give the illusion that there's food for her children. She will do anything to go and get food.
True.
So it's looking at people feeling the base of the pyramid. Everything else is secondary now. And
It's
that's
all
why
up
you're seeing the roads are full.
Let's go to the phone line. We are now joined by Nairobi Woman Rep, Esther Passaris. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Morning.
Welcome to the Situation Room, and thank you very much for speaking to us. This is Eric Latif. You have Ndu Oko and Dr. Mercy Korir.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Mercy.
Hi, sir. Good morning.
Morning, dear.
So the issue that we're discussing this hour, and also we discussed an issue that also you could come in and comment on earlier, is now we're talking about what is clearly evident is that people are getting back into their business. People are no longer as closed up as they were earlier. In fact, the government has also raised this concern. We had asked for people to reduce their movement. We are seeing an increase of movement. Why is this happening? And also the issue that we were discussing earlier was around the Kariobangi sewer treatment plant, where there was some eviction yesterday.
Yeah. Okay, let me start off with the movement. I mean, look, when you look at countries like the UK or the US, there's so many remedies that solutions or interventions that governments are able to give to the people. In Kenya, whatever tax cuts we've given, right, they're not going to be felt by the people on the ground. I know the government has put over 10 billion to give cash transfers to the old, the persons with disability, and majority of the people that you meet will say that we're not getting anything. Let me give you one sector that I really feel sorry for: the sector of people who work in bars in the evening. When we started off with the curfew, bouncers, waiters, cooks, people who work in bars, all of them have been rendered jobless. Most of them are hand to mouth. And they're not in that category where government will give intervention. We have not yet started distributing food as government in terms of devolution in Nairobi. I know that last week some money went to Northeastern, some food donations that we had. I think rice from China went to Northeastern areas, but it hasn't come, other areas, but it hasn't come to Nairobi. So people are hungry. People, the day-to-day wages are affected, because now there's no disposable income. If you were a woman who was selling boga on the road in Kibra, right now you have nobody buying that boga, all right? And you're not even having stock, or the stock you have has already gone rotten. So we have a lot of problems, and the interventions that we need are in the informal settlements, where you, Kawangware, for instance. When you look at the footage, life is going on like normal. So the thing is, what we've managed to do with the curfew is to actually stop and curb the spread in the evenings. But we've not been able, in the informal settlements, to really curb the spread during the day. Now, that is a time bomb in itself, all right? The thing is, people can't stay at home when they can't eat. It's impossible. People can't, and the kind of houses that we're asking people to stay home in the informal settlements are not conducive for you sitting and saying, oh, we can stay home. Those are places that people just go to rest and sleep. They have their meal even outside the house. They don't even eat it inside the house, So we've also got to understand our clientele, the citizens of this country, and make interventions in that way. But Kenyans are, rather than resort to crime or rather than to resort to, waiting for handouts, majority of them are trying to make ends meet. And that, of course, means that they will not be doing the social distancing. They will probably not be wearing masks because they can't afford it. So I feel that every sector has to be looked at differently.
Is this an indictment? Is this an indictment, Mheshimiwa, on the kind of response that was initially rolled out by the government? Because the government said minimize your movement. The government said stay at home if for as long as you can. but it did not address the issue of the basic social protection for the people. When the measures that have been announced by the president on various fora, reducing taxes for those who are formally employed, or even reducing VAT for the manufacturing, those do not trickle down to the people who are completely vulnerable to this.
You know, we had the discussion on, for instance, reducing of VAT.
Yeah.
Even if you reduce VAT, the impact on that reduction will not be felt by Mama Boga initially, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, one was thinking, what, would you have rather just collected that VAT and then taken that bulk money and now give us intervention, all right? That was a discussion as well. But the VAT reduction, it's going to take time for it to be felt. The people that are employed and on PAYE, right? They're very, very insignificant, especially if you look at Nairobi. How many people are really on PAYE?
Yeah.
Very
How many
few,
people actually
if
even
any.
benefit from the 24,000
So,
and below?
and then majority of them have been laid off. Majority of them have been sent on unpaid leave. So it's not helping anyone, because the income that you thought, okay, will not be taxed, I'll be getting my 25,000. Now you're not even getting that 25,000. Intercontinental, which is partially owned by government, sent everybody on unpaid leave. The hotel is still closed.
Yeah.
All those people who were income earners were holding a family of 5 to 10 people by extension.
Yeah.
Now, that 5 to 10 people are already feeling the pain. Because our brother who worked at Intercon as a security guard, or our brother who worked at Intercon as a chef, used to give us some money, used to help us out. Now he himself needs help. So I feel that...
How then will we be able to get people back home? Because across sector, what we saw yesterday and yesterday morning till today, people are driving cars. So it's not just the informal sector. We have people on the road. We had traffic, just as an example. We had traffic yesterday between 4 o'clock and 9 p.m. Everybody's on the road. Curfew be damned, right? So how then do we go back, and how would government go back and say, actually, we need you actually to go and stay at home, whereby they've realized, you know what, I need to be out. I need to look for something to do or something to eat. How do we reverse the message?
Or should it be cautious reopening?
Okay, let me tell you something. Right now, if you're saying that people were on the road at 7,
Nine.
we're already at 9. We're already disobeying the curfew.
Already.
The curfew requires that you're home by 7.
Yeah.
So that in itself is a problem. Okay, but then the other thing is, right now, I think we know the pockets where we're having infections. We're already able to zero in and say, okay, we have a problem in Isli, we have a problem in Kawangware. So we need to understand, if we're going to have a complete lockdown in Kawangware or Isli, and we're going to have mass testing in those areas, right? So that we can actually figure out, stop the spread from that area to somewhere else. Because right now, if you don't close Kawangware, you don't close Isli, right? Then you're going to actually spread it across the whole of Nairobi, right? Because obviously we have pockets of infection spread in those areas. But the fact is, you cannot close it if you don't have a solution to put food in everybody's home.
Yeah.
You know, everybody has to have food. So the question is, how do we make sure that everybody in Kawangware is able to be fed, and you zero in, you know, like now we've closed Nairobi, from Nairobi going to Machakos or Machakos coming to Nairobi.
Yeah.
You have a succession of sorts. Internally, within the county of Nairobi, if it is continuing, right, then we have to do it. And then yesterday I saw we also have another problem. Children are silent carriers, all right? So they will get the coronavirus, and then they will spread it to adults, and they're saying, stop our children from playing with each other. No, what we have to do is, you can't stop children from playing. You know, I mean, it's almost, in Europe you can, in the sense that you're telling everybody stay indoors. They've got all their gadgets, they've got everything. These little children, the only thing they have is the Mabati place where they go and sleep in the slum. I'm not looking at middle class Kenya. I'm not looking at the people who are on the cars. I'm looking at the majority of Nairobians who live in the informal settlements, and that little time out is the only sanity they have to hold on to.
So what solution would you suggest? Because now we're here, we are seeing that people are reacting to their daily needs. They're out, they're
Yes.
moving up and about, they're trying to make ends meet. And yet, at the same time, they need to observe physical distancing. They need to
I
try and
think
fight
we haven't
COVID-19.
I think we haven't, somebody posted on a wall recently in my office wall saying that, corona is real. I didn't realize how real it was until it hit somebody in my family. All right? So the thing is, one, a lot of people are still thinking, this thing, haiko hapa, it's not here yet.
Yep.
We still have that mentality. Haijafika Kenya, where is it? So I think the more and more people who got infected coming out and talking about it, but unfortunately, we've created such a stigma about coronavirus that right now nobody is even prepared to go and test because of what are the implications. You're telling me that if I test and I get positive, I'm going to be isolated at my own cost.
Yeah.
My family and friends are going to be isolated at my own cost. So if you get me and if you find me with coronavirus, and then you ask me, give me the list of the people that you were with, other than taking my phone and getting my private data to see who I've been talking to, I might not disclose who I met because it will be condemning them
Yep.
to now who did you meet and who did you meet. So the government, I feel, has to somehow make isolation not a punishment, not a cost burden. And
Yep.
we have to make sure that people feel that, look, if you got the coronavirus, we're going to take care of you. But while we're taking care of coronavirus, there's so many other elements. We talk about immunization. I'm sure Dr. Mercy is going through hell right now, trying to get everybody to understand that immunization is important. Cancer patients are not able to get the treatment. The high blood pressure, diabetes are not able to get the drugs. So we need to designate certain hospitals that will have a casualty that can deal with emergencies that might be corona and transfer to Bagavi, for instance, if it's in Nairobi, and then you offer other services, whether there's a road accident, whether there's an illness, whether there's a maternity. I mean, we are going to end up losing so many people, not from corona, but from illnesses that were not attended to because we were so focused on corona.
Yeah.
So if we're trying to save lives, it matters not whether it's corona. Corona is a focus because of the spread, the infection. But right now, we've got people dying from other things. Are we monitoring that? Are we measuring that? Sexual gender-based violence is on the increase. Depression is on the increase. People might die from suicide. I mean, you're seeing it in England where social structures are so much higher. People can still walk into the park and keep social distance. We don't have that in Kenya.
Let me ask, Esther, being a member of the National Assembly Committee on Health, and COVID is right at your doorstep. What is your committee, and by extension the National Assembly, doing to address all these issues you've raised, because they're very fundamental and key? And here, really, this is the time when you as leaders should step up and do something to cushion wananchi and also provide a way forward that is less harmful to the people.
Let me tell you what, first of all, we were dealing with budgets recently. We made sure that all the necessary monies that were required for interventions were in place, and also not neglecting the other areas. Yesterday, for instance, there are other things that are going on. Yesterday, we met with the task force for blood, and making sure that we can have enough blood in our country and we can manage blood properly, because we've had issues in blood management in Kenya. So there are other areas that we are also meeting and discussing. And as far as we're concerned, every question that comes in the public domain, every question that comes in the media, we interact. Like this afternoon, we're going to be having a sitting with the CS of health to answer some of the various questions as well. But at the end of the day, that's happening in the background. All right, Parliament should be going on recess, if I'm not mistaken, by tomorrow. But the Health Committee will be meeting at least twice or three times a week, trying to make sure that where there is need, whether it's Cambry, whether it's KEMSA, whether it's Kenyatta National Hospital, whether it's Kenyatta University Hospital, whether it's the ministry, we are there to make sure that we're giving the necessary guidance, and we are also giving the necessary approvals or getting the necessary approvals or assisting where necessary to make sure that, we are the link between the public as elected members of Parliament and the executive. So those interventions are there. They might not be felt because committee meetings. Nobody understands that majority of the work that parliamentarians do is in the committee meetings. That's where decisions are made, because the ministry cannot just go spend money, allocate money. They have to get approvals, and they come to us, and we're doing all that. Right now, there's a lot of question of how much testing are we doing? How are we going to improve the testing? We've talked about isolation. How are we going to cushion people? We've talked about making sure that people are not detained. There was the case of Kenyatta University, the Askari from Lenana, who said he was being given a bill of 60,000. We also said, we want to see government not stressing people, mental health. We're discussing all this. But you see, the thing is, coronavirus caught everybody with their pants down.
So, Mheshimiwa, how much has the committee? How much has the committee allocated to ensure that these things actually are paid for? You're talking about isolation, because you also raised the issue of testing and isolation and quarantine those costs being borne by government. Has this been addressed by the committee? Has money been allocated by the committee for this?
We have addressed it, and we have allocated money, right? And I believe that there's going to be we're going to see a little bit of difference in how we're handling isolation cases. So the public has to not shy away from. I mean, the thing is, it's a pandemic. Nobody asks to be infected. You can't be made to pay a price for trying to keep the whole country safe. It is the government's responsibility, and we've given them enough money, whatever they asked for, in terms of managing isolation, in terms of managing quarantine, in terms of managing hospitalization, right? Yeah. We have given them. So they should now try and see how they can balance it out. Even yesterday, something very simple like, all the hospitals have money for food, all right, for serving meals. Right now, you're getting your meals from the Kenya Hotel Keepers Association. So where can that money go? What can that money do? Yeah. How long is the commitment by the Kenya Hotel Keepers Association? So I feel that as a country, right, our government moved at very high speed. Our people took a very long time to catch on. But right now, when I walk around the city, I see a lot of people wearing masks. A lot of people are not wearing them correctly. A lot of people are not social distancing. Social distancing, when you're looking at the simulations that are being done on TV, I'm sure Mercy must have seen it recently on TV, even up to 6 feet. If somebody coughs or sneezes, it's spreading up to 6 feet. So that you're talking about 2 meters. Yeah. And now our social distance is not even half a meter. People, when you go to border borders, they're all sitting on their border borders next to each other, looking at each other, mask kwa chini. So look, mass testing is the best way for us to know where we're sending. I think we should emulate what Mombasa is doing. Mombasa County seems to, I saw Joho leading by example, doing the test, trying to get rid of the phobia or the stigma around corona testing. I feel that the more we test, the more we'll know what we're dealing with. True. I don't think we've reached our what is it, the peak yet? No.
No.
We are yet to get there.
We are yet to get there.
Mheshimiwa Esther Passaris, woman rep for Nairobi County.
About Kariobangi.
Yes. So let's go into a short break, take a look at weather, and then we come back and you tell us about the Kariobangi social protection for such vulnerable communities, especially at this time for COVID-19.
Yes. Okay.
All right, only partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. We're looking at heights in temperature. We'll get to around 19 degrees, highs of 24 today, but we'll see showers in the afternoon. Nyeri is mostly cloudy today at 19 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 16 with showers in the afternoon. Nakuru this morning at 17 degrees. We'll see rain showers later on, highs of 24. Eldoret this morning at 17 degrees, warming up as well, highs of 21 and lows of 13 with the rain coming down in the afternoon. Kisumu is mostly cloudy at 22. Showers coming down later again, 27 degrees the high and lows of 20. The showers continue in Malindi at 28 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 26 with thunderstorms later on. Mombasa the same, it's cloudy this morning at 27 degrees. The rain will come back then with highs of 29 and lows of 25. Kampala at 22 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions today. Highs of 25 and lows of 19 in Dar es Salaam at 28 degrees. It's partly cloudy. Highs of 29 and lows of 24. And in Johannesburg at 11 degrees, it's mostly sunny today. Clear skies for most of the afternoon. Highs of 22 and lows of 8. And finally, in Lagos at 27 degrees. Clear skies all through. Highs of 33 and lows of 26.
Situation.
Chilled Spice.
26 minutes after 9. This in the room this morning is Dr. Marcy Korir, Eric Latif, Nduoko, and on the line is Esther Pasaris, Nairobi woman rep. Mheshimiwa, we were talking about Kariobangi. We saw some demolition of homes in Kariobangi. We were speaking earlier with the Chief Executive Officer of Earthy Water Agency. And, he was telling us this is a project that they have been doing for the last 5 years. And they're basically just putting up a wall, but there are people who had come and encroached this particular property, put up houses and rented out the houses. And the people who are being affected now are basically the tenants. What is it that you could do or you're doing to address the plight of such people? The fact of the matter is there are people who were rendered homeless yesterday.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say that Nairobi, obviously the physical planning of Nairobi has been totally messed up. The land grabbing has been very rampant, and majority of this land grabbing has unfortunately been politically connected or politicians. All right, so what has happened right now in trying to reclaim the water and sanitation land, we commend the government, because Nairobi, some of the, even Mercy will tell you, all the waterborne diseases, if we don't have a clear water and sanitation program in this country or in this county, we will never be able to eliminate things like cholera. We need a proper water and sanitation facilities in the entire county, in fact in the whole country, because that is something that happens almost every day. So we commend them for trying to, get back all the grab land. But this is not the time to, when you're trying to have social distance, that you start demolishing houses and putting women. Some of those women were women and children were put out at 5 o'clock in the evening. Now, where do you go in Nairobi where there are hardly any houses? You cannot even go up country right now, even if you have to say, okay, I can try and go up country.
Yeah.
You're confined because of secession into Nairobi. You can't move out. I was speaking to the MCA. I spoke to the MP. The lawyers have got a court order. That is something that I also feel, much as the government wants to do what it wants to do, right? It is very, very frightening when you have a court order and you're told, come back on the 5th or the 7th of May to discuss this issue, right? Of the people in Kariobangi, right? And you still go ahead and demolish. So for me, I think they got the court order. It gave them some reprieve. They wanted to argue their case, and maybe they do have a case.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I feel this. Government is government. If the officers in government did wrong, right, the citizens are caught in the wrong. You might think there might be somebody who bought that parcel of land. But I know it's a self-help group as well that Kwaminwa is representing. But for me, we need the water and sewer plants, absolutely. Do we need to move people? Yes, in a humane way. Government cannot be up against its citizens in such an inhumane way. We've seen it. The bulldozer, it became fashion in Nairobi to just have the bulldozer go and do whatever it wants to do. The thing is, the rule of law has to apply more to government than to the people. If government wants people to obey the rule of law and they themselves do not obey it, it's a very scary position. So for me, I welcome the idea of a 20 billion shilling water and sanitation plant in Nairobi. Perfect. I don't have a problem with what they did in Rwanda, because Rwanda, there were no human people. There were not a lot of human citizens, poor vulnerable citizens being affected. But to see children, now you're talking about social distance, children being the ones who can spread coronavirus.
Yeah.
Look at all the footage.
Yeah.
It's little children. to do that. And when you're trying to move a bed, you're trying to get your furniture out of the house to beat the bulldozers. Where's the social distancing?
True.
So at the same time, if tomorrow we say Kariobangi has become a center for coronavirus, we will go back and say it was the government who decided the demolition.
This is because of it. So, Mweshimiwa, you're saying...
But the thing is,
you're saying you reached out to the MCA and the MP, and you are in conversation with them. What exactly are you doing to help those people? You saw women being rendered homeless at 5 p.m. Today, they need a home.
I called the RC regional commissioner early in the morning. I spoke to the MCA. Says he was told that if he even shows up or steps up in that place, he's going to be arrested. He's not good to his people if he's arrested. So he even said to me, Esther, if you come here, we're all going to be arrested. At the end of the day, I just feel that government has to be able to. First of all, I think there was a court order. And the thing is, I was asking government, can we go and actually understand? Tell them, look, you know what, we're demolishing. Yeah. You've got 30 days. So where's the money? When you want to move to a new property, you need a deposit. Yep. You need transport. You need rent. Some landlords are going to ask for 3 months. And first of all, are those houses even available for you to go and move to? Nairobi has a shortage of houses.
Yeah.
And now you can't even move your children and say, let me take my children up country to show. Because we've closed everywhere. This was not the time to demolish Kariobangi. It was not.
We hear you. We hear you, Mweshimiwa, and we also reserve the same sentiments. But then now, if we're looking at an arm that's going to be able to deal with this, and what we've seen in the past, whereby we call these evictions unfair, it is government, right? So then, I mean, we hear. I hear how you feel, but then now, if you are in a position of government, for example, and maybe speaking on behalf of government and on behalf of the people at the same time, who then do people turn to, and what needs to be done, not just for this case, for future cases?
I've reached the realization. Don't forget, I was also once dealing with all these bulldozers when I had the Adopt a Life project. Yeah. And I was then a private business person, and I was wondering, what the hell? Why do people behave like this? Sometimes, unfortunately, government becomes like a banana republic, and it's really, really sad. Okay, right now, as a member of parliament, okay, and as a representative of these people, there is nothing. When you go there, you see government as well. You see the police, you see the DCI, you see the ministries. So you see, government is executive, it's judiciary, and it's the parliament. So now, if one arm decides to work on its own and can do what it wants to do, the other arm can only come in, but it will be after the event. You see, right now, you can't help those people who were demolished yesterday because they had a court order from one arm of government. But the other arm of government chose to ignore the court order.
Yeah.
So the question is, what will the judiciary do? I hope the judiciary locks them up. I hope the judiciary takes those executives and locks them up. Because at the end of the day, they broke the law. Something's got to give, because the three arms of government have to be seen to be working together. And the only time that you're supposed to not work together is when one is doing the wrong thing. Yeah. That is the checks and balances that we need. And yesterday, going to Kariobangi, knowing we're dealing with the pandemic, knowing we're dealing with vulnerable citizens, was the wrong thing. For me, it was the wrong thing. And I'm completely distressed by it. So then now I'm going to go and look at my GAF. We don't even have money in disaster. All the money that we had in disaster, 522,000 shillings per county, right, has already gone into buying water tanks and sanitizers.
Yeah.
So if I ask for reallocation of funds so I can go and help those vulnerable citizens get some money to be able to pay deposits, I'll be told I cannot reallocate the funds. So it's almost like being in a straitjacket. It's an impossible task when government goes against its people. I believe that we could have done this in a better way. We could have gone and understood. And I'll tell you what, some of those landlords have got deposits of those tenants. So if we had sat down and understood, we're talking about 800 households? If we had sat down with the administration, taken all the data, found out these are the 7 or 8 landlords, because there are 7 or 8 landlords. These are the people that grab this land. These are the people that have this much money in their bank accounts. You seize that money, you compensate the people. don't punish the innocent Kenyans.
Don't punish them. Thank you very much. I
No.
think you've made a very
Exactly.
strong
It's very
point and a very
fair.
strong case for this. Esther Parsaris, thank you very much for speaking to us, for joining us. We'll be calling you to find out. Mercy.
Take care.
Asante sana.
Thank you, Esther.
We'll be reaching out to you in coming days also to find out what you've been able to do to assist those people.
Well, yeah, we're meeting with the MP and the MCA, hopefully sometime midday today.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've been also trying to get hold of their lawyer to find out. It's a sorry situation. I just
Asante.
hope it doesn't become something that is going to be an epidemic in itself.
All the
Asante
best,
sana.
Esther.
Thank you.
All the best. Thank you.
25 minutes to 10 o'clock. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a look at traffic.
Okay, we don't see much more of it right now. Coming off of Mombasa, it's not as bad as it was earlier on. Thika Road, it was packed fully this morning, returned to factory settings, but that has opened up a little bit, getting in and out of the CBD. Not much of an issue right now. We'll see what it looks like through the day, but for now, people have reached where they're going, which I still don't know where that is, but okay. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. If you see something out of the ordinary, do let us know.
Two minutes to 10 o'clock. This is the situation room, Kenya's biggest conversation. So we started the conversation in this hour. What's happening? Why are people back on the road? What is it that it signifies? It shows that people have to, like Mercy was saying, basic needs.
Yeah.
I need to eat today. It's the end of the month. I've got new bills. I've got bills to pay. This is Nairobi. You have to pay bills. Many
Everything.
people are living in rented houses. You've got to pay your landlord. Your landlord has not given you any kind of reprieve. You've got to eat. You've got to foot your monthly expenses. So people are up and about.
And that landlord has a loan to pay somewhere.
Yep.
So
And the bank is not
yeah.
laughing with him. The bank is expecting that, this is going to be footed. This is going to be sorted. So people
Yeah.
are back out on the roads. And that's why I was asking Esther, is this an indictment on the kind of measures that the government put in place? So you came in here and you said, stay at home. But then you did not address those issues, which people were raising from the very beginning. Nikae nyumbani nitakula
Nitakula
nini.
nini.
And now here it is. Even those who are out on the road who are driving, these are people who had formal employment. They are home on unpaid leave. They have taken pay cuts,
Yeah.
or they have lost their jobs. So basically, it's the end of the month. You've run out of the cash reserves that you had, or you're starting to really deplete the cash reserves that you had. You've got to start thinking. People out there, maybe they're not even going to work. They're actually now doing those hustles. Can I sell? Can I make and sell face masks? What can I do to make ends meet?
You know, actually, the other day, you remind me. There's he told me he's a musician, DJ, MC. That's what he does. But now he goes to Marikiti every morning. Yes, Marikiti. Yes, every morning you place an order of what you want. He goes and buys and delivers at a fee.
And this is somebody who was in an entertainment industry.
Exactly, entertainment industry.
Now has gone into food retail.
Yeah.
Because you've got to make ends meet.
He just goes around, gets orders from everyone, puts it in the boot of his car, then comes and delivers to your house.
We have a fund that was established by the president, the Jane Karuko Fund. It has raised billions of shillings.
This is the Harambe.
The Harambe.
What was it for?
They've raised money. We are not seeing that money being distributed. So while they talk about they were doing a pilot, some mapping of people who are in need. People need to eat today.
We are just from a census, 2019. It's not even a year.
Yep.
Since we did the census. What other mapping are you doing?
You already know.
People's
where income and where they live.
Exactly.
In fact, this time the census was using electronic gadgets.
Exactly. Asking you about the land you own and the cows, everything. So you have a map. So what other mapping is there?
Yeah, listen. Look,
the information is there.
As an excuse. It can't be used as an excuse, unfortunately. The government knows where Kenyans are, the number of people in your household, whether you live an informal settlement or formal one, whether you have a mortgage or not.
Yeah.
They know whether you're living in a rented property or that which you built by yourself. They have this information. Data. So there is no reason you can say, well, we've not begun to distribute to those who need it because we're still mapping. I'm sorry.
What are you mapping?
Talk about something else. Talk about something else.
What data are you collecting?
No.
Examples around the region. Uganda went into a lockdown. President Museveni said, in fact, for some few days, allowed people to walk up and down, to move up and down. Then he basically said, remove even the PSVs from the roads. Do not move. Stay indoors. What are we going to do? I am going to deploy my military officers to come and give you food. Food is being distributed to people wherever they are. In Rwanda, same thing happened. Paul Kagame said, stay at home. And if you need to get out of your house, you need to tell me where you're going. You need to apply to the police. The police have to give you permission to leave. And they deploy technology. We keep bragging here how Kenya is the forefront of mobile technology. What mobile technology have we used to to give out money to people? Even to allow,
even after
to monitor movement. We're only using that to punish people. To monitor their movement and see, you had come into contact with Nduoko has tested positive.
That one you can
I
use
have come for you. I will take you to quarantine at your own.
Family members.
In such cases, the technology seems to work brilliantly well. And you can find out who these individuals are until the nth, where they were, where they ate, where they threw a tissue in the garbage. You're able to find out where they were. Why can't you then translate that same data to be able to feed the people who need it to eat? They need it. People need it. Really need it. I mean, we're not talking about some fairy tale or some fantasy or some movie somewhere.
Yeah.
This is here now, real life, right amongst us. People need it. So there seems to be some reluctance. And unfortunately, yes, we've been talking about it and the similar thread runs through. You're not communicating some of these things to people. So they're going to make their own assumptions that actually, all right, you have this money you don't want to give us, then you're using it for something else. And we are the ones who actually need it.
We are the ones who need it.
I mean,
For me, the funny part is that government is surprised that people are out looking for something. The streets are busy. There's traffic. They're surprised.
they shouldn't be.
Why are you surprised? We told you from the beginning. Remember when we started this COVID and there were balancing measures, even when we had Dr. Mulwa here, and you're saying, okay, fine, lockdown restrictions, they are good, but are you addressing social protection? Are you addressing people's immediate needs of food? And they're like, yeah, we are looking at it. You know, the usual government speak.
Looking at it and talking to it.
Now, when you're still looking at it, thinking about it, when we've had conversations about tea and snacks of 4 million, you're surprised that people are on the streets.
Yeah.
When you have printing paper of 9 million, you are surprised that people are on the streets. It should be a no-brainer.
Let's speak to a Kenyan who is not in this country, but he is in Rwanda. This is a gentleman called Kefa Ngwenyi. Kefa Ngwenyi is an architect. He worked and lives in Kigali, Rwanda. Kefa has seen both ends, where Rwanda went and came up with strong measures to institute a lockdown, and now the lockdown is being partially lifted in Kigali. Good morning, Kefa.
Eric and company, how are you people?
Good morning.
We are very well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the nice introduction.
Thank
nice
you for
what you're doing there.
Thank you for joining us today. We understand that Rwanda is now lifting some of the stringent measures it had put in place in terms of a lockdown. What's happening now?
Yes, indeed. As from yesterday, the government has allowed most of the services to go back.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the main activities that are closed is schools and colleges. For the schools, it is decided that this calendar year for the national program is suspended. It's actually cancelled. So they'll start a new year after September.
Wow, okay.
But for the other services, we've been allowed to go back, but with the social distancing guidelines and recommendation to reduce the number of staff that need to be at office. The government is encouraging most people to work from home, those who can be able to work, to continue working from home.
So for how many weeks were you in total lockdown?
Almost 6. We started on 20th up to 3rd, so we resumed on 4th.
And
20th of March, I mean.
What was total lockdown? Just tell us what it entailed on a daily basis.
Total lockdown was essentially total lockdown. You were to remain at home and request for permission to do essential services. Essential services here, talking about going to hospital, going to bank, going to buy food. Initially there wasn't that requirement. They had put a time band in the morning when you could go to shop in the market, and for the others you ask for permission at the police at the roadblocks. There are many roadblocks within the city. Later on, they moved all that to online. So whatever essential services you wanted, you had first to get authorization from the police. And once you get the authorization, they give you a code which you were to show to at the police at roadblocks. The police had devices where they could confirm that indeed you had permission.
So if you want to go to the supermarket, you want to go to hospital, you first go to your mobile device and make that application.
Yes, there was an SSD code, or you could go to internet. They had created a portal. Then you go through the process of registering your information and clarifying what you want to do and the time you want to do it. And then within an hour or so, the police would send you a text to your phone to confirm if you are been given permission or you have been your permission had not been granted.
Do you see that people complied? If you want to look at people, across, did people comply with the orders? Did people comply with the lockdown across towns, across the country?
Yeah, I think, in Rwanda, I think the general feeling was that the government is doing it in the interest of the people. So all people from all walks of life tried their best. There is a pool of people who, for example, like farmers or those people who come from the outskirts of the city. There was, from what I will see, they at least loosened up their measures. People still were allowed, like the guys who bring avocado and bananas from the village.
Yeah.
But by and large, the ones who are within town did comply. And I think there was a general feeling that they are with it. The government is doing in the interest, and the people are in it with them. They are doing their best to forestall. Of course, there was a lot of challenges in terms of how much that could be done, but you could see like there was a general feeling like everyone was trying their best to adhere to those regulations.
Okay, and just looking at people who may have been taken care of, because obviously Rwanda shares the same problem where there are some people who, look for hand to mouth every day. Were they taken care of? And I will say that against like Kenya, for example, where a lot of people depend on hand to mouth every day and still trying to come out because they don't have sustenance. Did you see the same situation there, or was there something that has been provided for them?
Yes, talking to that, as I was listening to the discussion earlier, I mean, the both governments, Kenya and here, do have information, but I think Rwanda tends to apply the information they have. Maybe because it's small, I don't know, but the people of the lowest category are generally known, not because of the pandemic, but there's actionable things. Like, for example, if you talk about insurance, health insurance, they are the lowest cadre of people which are considered category 6. They don't pay health insurance. There are many things that they are exempted from. Okay. So when the government is distributing around, it knows people it ought to distribute for, because they where they stay, they are known, and who they are actually. It is actionable.
It's already within the system.
So when the government, it's within the system, so it was targeted. They were not just going maybe into the road and trying to call people to come and pick packages. They generally went to the neighborhoods and distributed those people who fell in those categories they felt that need the support from the government.
When people needed to move out, let's say you want to go to the bank or to the market to do all those other activities, because from what you're saying, you apply, then either you get a go-ahead or not. When people were out, how were they moving around? Were people walking? Like what Uganda, Museveni told people, like, if you want to go to your market, leave your car, walk. Were people walking? Could people drive? And was there any physical distancing being observed within, let's say, Kigali, for example?
To start with, the walking generally was more, what I could say, most people did walk because the shops remained open in the neighborhood. So most people could walk maybe to a kiosk near their home. But with the few times I passed, there's a time I took a baby to the hospital, you couldn't really see many people on the street. So it was not a situation where even at that time it felt like you would require to bother with social distancing.
Yeah.
Later on, they have asked people to be using masks even before the lockdown, but initially the numbers were few on the roads. And for the people who wanted to go far, it was going to be difficult because they allowed only one occupant in the car. And there was no public transport.
Yeah.
There was no public transport, meaning no buses, no motorbikes. So you had to be in a car, and if it is a taxi, then it carries one passenger.
Only one passenger.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the measures that are actually being taken in addressing COVID. From testing, how has testing been done?
From what? Come again?
Testing for COVID cases.
Oh, okay. I need to tell you that I was in Nairobi shortly before the lockdown here. Actually, I arrived here and then the government lifted the lockdown. My family stays here. And there's a stark difference on how the approach was. Even before I left for Kenya, which was early March, they had started taking information. All government institutions had been asked to provide sanitizers and all public places, even prior to the lockdown. And when we left the country and came back, they were taking our information. Maybe because also they wanted us to be honest, they were not taking our names. Whenever you land at the airport, they just take all the details, your travel history, your situation, which is unlike Nairobi. Nairobi, when we fill those forms, and I'm feeling like I might be traced and be whatever identified, probably I can put information that is not accurate.
Yeah.
But this year was in personal information at the airport. They take all the information. You tell them your history and where you've been and what you feel, so they don't link it directly to you as a person. And of course, you would tell them where you stay. So for the people who came towards the time of lockdown, they also followed. They put officers to track you and continue following your development, because I gather there were times they started seeing some cases from the planes that came towards the lockdown.
Yeah.
So the people who had been in those planes were traced. I had a friend who they kept contact for the duration and ensuring that he followed the guidelines from home.
Okay.
Right.
After that, the mandatory quarantine now was done by the government. There's a center they created, instituted, so whenever you came, you went to the quarantine center, and if they discovered you have the virus, then you were taken out to the isolation center. What people have been happy, including foreigners, because most of the people initially who came with the virus were actually not Rwandan, is that there was total, the treatment, the testing was free of charge.
It was completely free for everybody.
Free completely. I don't know whether it will change with time, but up to this point, it is free. Testing is free, medication is free, everything. The government has taken up all those costs for the cases that have been discovered so far.
So as the measures loosen a little bit in Rwanda, do you see that people will still follow? I mean, because the measures are being released and they're giving protocol of how it's going to be done, right? Do you see that people will follow based on what has happened before? Will they follow now with the releasing of these measures? Lockdown essentially is being, relaxed, isn't it? So do you think that people will follow from what you hear?
You see, it's been lax, but it's not, as you say, it's not entirely been put on hold.
Yeah.
Still, we don't have people traveling on motorbikes. Buses only carry 50% of the passengers. And, one thing that you probably may know by now, that Rwandans generally obey the law.
Yes.
So even when you walk in the streets, people do wear masks.
Yeah.
You see some of them are struggling, they are not covering their noses, but nobody is walking without a mask, for example. And from the little thing, because only yesterday I was able to go out, I'm seeing like people are observing by and large, not 100%,
but by and large they are.
People are, by and large. Yeah.
Kefa Ngwenyi, we want to thank you very much for speaking to us, for sharing your experience.
Thank you, Eric.
And we wish you all the best. Stay safe to you and your family.
Asante sana, nanyi wakati mwema.
Asante pia.
Thanks, Kefa.
Thank you.
They went hard, and now they're relaxing. And look at the numbers.
Right.
I think
we have been pussyfooting on this issue. We don't know. We should we open restaurants? Should we not? Should we close bars? Should we not? Should we allow matatus? Should we not? Where are we?
Here we are.
490.
Okay. 490. I look at what he said, and it's, I think, very important. And I hope some people in our government are listening. That mandatory quarantine, isolation, testing has been free, covered by government. And I've just quickly checked, and they've done 35,000 tests.
Wow.
That is more than we have done.
Of course. They have 260 out of 35,000
Yep.
tests.
We have done what now, about just 22,000? 22,000 tests.
Yes.
A whole 12,000 cases more than us, and 0 deaths for them.
Yeah.
How many cases do they have? Half of what we have reported. Because of the measures we've taken. 4 hours is too short for this show. Just while we're getting there. Coming to the end of the show now, let me just remind you today's proverb, and then we can look at it. Ears that do not listen to advice accompany the head when it is chopped off. We know which ears are not listening to our advice.
What are you suggesting?
As we get that head.
Say it as it is, Eric Latte.
As we go for the head, shall accompany the ears.
The ears shall accompany the head.
The ears shall accompany the head.
Yeah.
Say goodbye, Dr. Marcy.
Okay. But we're back here tomorrow. Goodbye means like
Never again.
Never again.
No.
See you
We're
later.
back
See you later.
Okay.
Same time, same place tomorrow.
Indeed.
New conversations, new situations.
Can you top that?
I can't top that. I've just got to say bye, guys.
Thank you very much for tuning in to the Situation Room today. Dr. Marcy Karir, Nduoko, and Eric Latif. Join us tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Now until 2 p.m. You've got uninterrupted music, sugar and spice, and everything nice. And then Monique will be here 2 to 6. And then later, the adults in the room. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock.